We are tonight's entertainment.
You will never find the more wretched hive of scum and villainy.
Excellent!
Hello, everyone. Welcome to episode of the Movie Mania podcast, where we talk things past, present, and future. I am your host, Sherman Trey White of Podcast Media, and joining me is the man, the myth, the legend. Oh my gosh, Batman! It's Trilby / Mr. Toddus.
Holy heart failure, Trey.
Oh, Trilby.
What?
It
was the only holy one from the show that I could actually remember. That is a direct quote, but now I'm realizing it is a direct quote. But now, in retrospect, it's possibly the worst one I could have picked.
A bit in poor taste, and just a tad bit too soon.
Holy legacy, Batman.
There it is.
Can we edit that?
Absolutely not. We're leaving it all
I'm
in.
kidding.
Welcome this week,
I am
guys.
kidding. I have made the mistake. I will lie in it. I will wallow in my mistake.
Actually, you'll tweet a joke about it 6 hours after you posted it, and the internet already ran with it. Hashtag whatever that word was.
Coffee.
Covfefe.
I'm just here with my nice glass of coffee.
No joke though, I'm sitting here with a glass of coffee at 6 o'clock in the evening, because that's just how summer vacation works. How are you doing, Trilby?
Yeah, I'm doing good. Just recovering this weekend because I've spent the week in London working very long hours on the... Hello, can you hear me?
Oh, sorry, the Skype dropped out. Oh, that's going to be fun to edit. The Skype dropped out for a few seconds.
That's alright, but I'm spending this weekend recovering because I've spent the past week in London working long hours on the Late Late Show of James Corden. And then I immediately went on a logging job working with the last leg, documenting all of the UK election, which was a very interesting night. So I'm still recovering in terms of sleep, but I should be all up to date now. Should have a working sleep cycle.
Did you get to hang with any sweet people in the back of limousines while working with James Corden, Trilby?
Not in the limousine. I hung out backstage with people like Emily Blunt and Russell Brand and David Beckham, which was fun.
How is Emily Blunt? Yeah,
she's so dignified. She's really polite and lovely.
Yeah,
she's awesome. She's really last week. She was the only guest who I wanted. I'm not going to rate the celebrities, but she was the only person in the lineup who I was like, I definitely have to try and meet her and talk to her, and she was awesome.
Did you turn to her and you were like, so biggest regret of your life, was it not doing Sicario 2 or doing Into the Woods? That's what that's my question to her.
I was just wanting to ask questions about Edge of Tomorrow, the sequel, or Mary Poppins Returns, because that's why she was in London. She spent the past 8 months filming Mary Poppins.
I would have turned to her and said, how crazy is the microwave thing about Tom Cruise real? Just to see her, it's like when you ask Daisy Ridley a Star Wars question and her face freezes up for a brief second, you're like, that means yes.
Well, when I'd signed up to do the job, I thought that Tom Cruise was going to be there because he was going to film a skit with James Corden, and he did. He filmed a 10-minute long thing which can be found on the Late Late Show YouTube channel. But he wasn't
promote
actually
a successful YouTube channel with millions of subscribers. Why don't you, Trilby?
Well, I'm actually in one of the videos. They did a challenge. The writers came up with a challenge called the Dame Judi Dench challenge, where you have to say it as many times as you can, as fast as you can. And I'm actually in that video.
That's crazy. Wow.
Doing the challenge badly.
I might just link that if I can remember to write that down, which I'm currently not doing, definitely.
Fair enough, but it's I thought I was going to meet Tom Cruise, and if I did, I would have asked him that question. So
the
microwaves.
Let's see what he probably would have been like, yeah, aren't they just great things?
Aren't they great to sit on? You just feel so warm and fuzzy, and give you eternal youth, clearly. And they increase the size of your balls, which makes you really want to do big stunts.
I'm still waiting for that Variety report where it's like Tom Cruise mauled by tiger on set of Mission Impossible 9. I'm still waiting for that.
Now the headline's going to be more like mauled by 6 tigers riding helicopters.
Tom Cruise's parachute didn't open up after he required her not to have a parachute and just jumped from a plane without a parachute. He then splatted on the floor. It's like a superhero movie where he thinks he can fly.
It turns out that his next big stunt in the Dark Universe films is becoming Frankenstein's monster. Tom Cruise accidentally dies after being killed, having his body parts separated and trying to be reassembled again.
Tom Cruise suffocates after being covered in toilet paper for the Mummy set.
He died the way he lived, covered in toilet roll. Somehow that works.
Yeah, that's pretty sweet for you. Yeah, we did some more shooting on Equation this past weekend. And funny story, I won't say who, but one of my actors had. Tillbee, if I asked you, I said we're gonna shoot a scene. It's a quick 3-second shot of you opening a door and you're gonna peer through the door. Now, Tillbee, how does one peer through a door?
It depends what the intent is. Are you trying to be sneaky? Like, what's... Sorry, I know this is probably more elaborate than you were expecting, but what is the context for the scene?
The context, without giving anything away, is that they are checking up on somebody who is sleeping in the room.
Okay, well, you'd try and do it as quietly as possible, and you'd open the door as minimally as possible so you don't let so much light in.
Right.
So you don't wake them up.
Right, so you don't open the door and then not hold on to the handle and let the door open all the way, correct?
Yeah, you keep a hold of the handle, especially if it's a squeaky handle.
Yeah, so I won't say who, but there is definitely someone on set that didn't understand that concept, and we definitely had to sit there and hammer home that concept for let's say 20 minutes. You know, in Guardians of the Galaxy where Groot has to figure out which button to push. I turned to Christian and I said, "That's literally that person," because that same day we had that awful experience. We went and saw Guardians. Oh my god. But besides that incredibly stressful 15 minutes of my life that I'm never getting back, and I definitely lost 2 years from, the shoot went great, and it's a great scene. I've been up at night doing nothing but editing and watching and making the music, and oh god, I'm gonna... oh, it's wonderful, isn't it?
Gonna nap.
Honestly though, I think it might have been, it was yesterday. I woke up at 2:30. Woke up at 2:30 in the afternoon. I was like, "What time is it?"
I did that Saturday. 2:30.
Yeah, it was ridiculous. But that's my personal life. I suppose, Tillbee, we ought to get into the movie news.
Let's do it.
Ladies and gentlemen, can I please have your attention? I've just been handed an urgent and horrifying news story. Cannonball!
Alright guys, this is the movie news portion of the show, in case we, I slurred that, but whatever. In which case we talk about the movie news that occurred over the past week or so. For starters, let's open on some tragedy. We lost a few people this past week. We should probably mention Adam West recently passed away. Was it today or yesterday? I feel like it was today.
The news was yesterday, but he passed away Friday night.
Was it? Oh, jeez, it was that long ago, huh?
Well, it took an extra day for the news to be announced and reported, because obviously it's Adam West's agency and representatives and his family who break the news like a day after it happened.
Is it upsetting that when the moment I found out he passed away, my first thought was not Adam Wee, because there's a great joke in Family Guy,
Family Guy
with that sign like the power dribbles or whatever, and he's like, "I'm not Adam Wee."
Nobody messes with Adam Wee. But that's one weird thing about Adam West. There's literally maybe 2 or 3 generations of people who only know Adam West by him mocking his own success in a really classy way, if that makes sense. Like obviously he was Batman in the 60s, but then he's made appearances in Batman the Animated Series playing an actor who once played a superhero. He did a similar gig in Fairly Odd Parents and Goosebumps and things like that. He spent a lot of...
Who was he in Fairly Odd Parents again? I always forget. Oh, he was Catman. That's right. Oh, now I'm sad again. Oh, no. Catman. Oh, I remember. I love Catman. Him and the Crimson Timberlake. Oh, no. Okay. And there was another great Family Guy joke where I think Brian is like trying to get him to sign a bill, and he's like, "Luckily, I also vomited down this escape manual." He vomits up this.
He's regurgitating a raft.
Yeah, he regurgitates a raft.
then he gets in it and starts rowing, and he hits a wall. A wall!
Oh yeah, that early Family Guy stuff with him in it it's great. I'll get all the he always says, "I'll get all the A's out of me soon," in that, and he just starts screaming out the window. Ah!
Oh no, you're challenging Adam West to a shouting match, eh? Well, game on. I'm beating you. But Adam, he's got such a really awkward way of speaking and a really iconic voice. He's really well known for his voice work, and including once again a lot of Batman stuff. Like he voiced Bruce Wayne's dad in Batman Brave and the Bold. He voiced a version of Batman in the Lego Batman games, and he's been in The Simpsons, Futurama, and Johnny Bravo, and all of this stuff. And apparently he was just really great at conventions and really generous to his fans, always making time for them. And he was one of the few who kind of embraced his typecast role in the 60s, because after Batman he found it hard to get serious work.
Mm-hmm. Well, you're right. It's kind of a generational thing of I did grow up. Batman was. I mean, the way people think I'm obsessed with things like Star Wars and black and white photographs now. No, God, I mean, Batman was just my thing as a child, and I kind of tried to absorb everything Batman. And so my uncle was big into the 60s TV show, and so he would always put it on and watch it, and I would just have a blast. Because, say what you will about the 60s TV show, it is very Batman. I mean, it's got all the villains, he's got all the gadgets, he figures things out, he's a detective. He's a better detective in that than he is in the bloody Christian Bale movies. Nothing on those Christian Bale movies, though. But I just... It is sad to me to think that so many people had a collective awe when they found that out, because there's so many different things that he has done over the years, and I think that he was 88, which is that's a pretty, he lived a pretty great life, and he was able to find something after Batman, and that's fantastic. And I was very saddened by it. 2017. I'm not sure it's been as brutal as 2016, but it has not been kind.
No. But like he's still got. Doesn't he still have maybe one or two voice roles as Batman still to go? Like I think he's
didn't he did that 1960s kind of revival animated movie last year, didn't he?
He did, Batman. And I think that they were going to do a sequel on William Shatner's Two-Face. I think I've heard that, and
that's so good.
And I don't know if they actually finished
or
it.
Tails, bats.
that would be really cool, but I don't know how much of it got finished. I don't know if that actually went ahead. But if it did go ahead, then I think it was called Batman v Two-Face. We're still going to have a bit more William Shatner's Batman to see, and that's just always a great thing.
As long as they both end up becoming best friends because they share a similar name. That's all I'm asking. That's all I'm asking for it. But I do think he lived, to quote Kevin Smith, "Big bucket of win." He did have a very nice long life, and I was sad to see him go. We lost somebody else this week. Tillbee, I'll let you take this one away.
Yeah, this was... I don't want to say that this has been a long time coming, but it's sort of something that has been... We've been having conversations about this for a very long time. It was Peter Sallis who passed away last week at the age of 96. And for those of you who don't know him, he was Wallace in Wallace and Gromit. He voiced... he voiced Wallace. He was basically the star of the Aardman animated shorts, because Gromit doesn't have a voice. He really is the one who vocally carries that franchise. And he retired a few years ago, and he passed away last week, which I think is kind of pretty sad. And especially when you think about how he was originally known as in the TV series Last of the Summer Wine, which kind of really kicked off his career a bit later in life. But what happened is that Nick Park, who was a student at the time, he did a grand day out for Wallace and Gromit. He was a student, and he basically got in contact with Peter Sallis' agents and said, "Hey, I would like Peter Sallis to voice this character. I'll give him £100," which was like nothing compared to like Peter Sallis' normal salary. But Peter took the role. He took this student project. He voiced the only character in it for £100, and that kind of made him He's now an icon in British culture. He's an immortal figure in the lexicon now as Wallace, and I think that's it just shows how humble he is and just how he kind of believes like in the craft and just helping people. And I think it was really generous, and it just kind of speaks to his character. And there's been a lot of talk about whether or not he'll return to Wallace. Obviously, that's not going to be the case now, but there was always talk of whether or not he would be well enough to return, whether or not he could voice him again. So there's been conversations about this for a while, so it'll be interesting knowing just what's happening. But just going on Twitter and seeing GIFs and videos of Gromit crying, just that was rough. That was rough, man.
Why would they do that? See, even my nephews cried in the background.
I know, and yeah, he last voiced Wallace in 2010. It was 7 years ago he last voiced the character. So wondering just whether or not what will happen next. I think there's a impersonator called Ben something, Ben Whitehead, who has voiced Wallace since 2010 in like the BBC proms and a few video game appearances here and there. So he will likely take over the role. If they do continue with Wallace and Gromit. I'll completely respect if they don't, because, Peter Sallis is Wallace for all intents and purposes. We'll see how it goes, but this was quite another hefty loss this past week, I think.
Yeah.
So,
I wasn't as well versed in the Wallace and Gromit world as you probably were. I did watch the movie growing up, the one they did about 10 or so years ago, Curse the Were-Rabbit. Which I really enjoyed. I've always been a fan of stop motion animation, and we'll get more into that later on. But I will say that it's really interesting because I'm getting to that age now where like a lot of my childhood's going away. Like it's just these little it's like it's all reminds me of last year when Bowie and Rickman died within like 48 hours of each other. I was wait a minute. I was like, Labyrinth and Harry Potter just killed over like that, both at 69. My nephew is really screaming outside. You guys can hear that. I apologize because I could hear it really loudly. But anyways, it was terrifying to see. It just makes me, those segments like you think you feel old when it's one of those things of like, oh my god, you feel old when you realize that so many things that you remember watching as a 4-year-old kid who loved TV and movies, it's all just kind of fading away. There are still some.
I think that's a lovely thing about film and TV and media in general, because we've lost Alan Rickman and Adam West and Peter Sallis and all these, like, we've lost so many icons, but then they're never truly gone, because they have been immortalized. Like, media is the only form of immortality that we possess in a way. Like, we're never really going to forget about Alan Rickman because we've got Hans Gruber, we've got Severus Snape. We're not going to forget about Peter Sallis because we've got Wallace, and Roger Moore because we've got James Bond.
Oh, Roger Moore did die. Damn it.
We talked about that in the last podcast.
Yeah,
didn't we?
We did.
And
we did.
And even with and Adam West, of course, he's going to be immortalized in live action and in animated form for years to come, and for decades and more generations. And there was a really this was a picture that sort of made my heart bleed a bit. And it was a picture. It was just it was a cloudy background. It was way up in the sky, and just on the left side of the image is Adam West vertically upwards, climbing a rope upwards.
Oh yeah, I saw that one.
And
I saw that. I couldn't do it. I saw one. I think it was a picture of, I think that episode of the Animated Series talking about that Adam West was a voice in, and it was Kevin Conroy. He tweeted, he was like, "Goodbye, old chum," or whatever, and it was like, oh no, I couldn't. It broke my heart. This is. It's sad when you wake up to it, like if you go maybe throughout like half your day and hear it, it hurts. But when you wake up and you're like the first thing you see is a tweet.
It sets the tone for the rest of the day.
It's like I remember waking up at 7 o'clock in the morning, like, oh, good morning, Wednesday in January. Oh, Snape just died. I hit my microphone. I was like, oh, Snape just died. Fantastic. I mean, nothing. Yeah, it's not. It hasn't been easy. But anyways, that's the movie. Actually, one more thing. Going from tragedy to just disappointment. The Black Panther trailer came out this week. Tillbee, you saw it.
Yeah, I thought it looked pretty cool.
I
liked it.
I'm not a fan.
No? Trey, is that because you're a racist?
Yeah, I just can't get behind the whole black agenda thing. I feel like the liberal crooked people
these
are really
social justice warriors
are really trying to undermine
these diverse characters, shoving them down our throat.
Comey gets fired, and then suddenly this Black Panther trailer comes out. Like, that's just some. No jokes aside, though, they released this during the NBA Finals. I'm just saying. That's all I'm gonna say. I'm saying this wasn't an accident, Trilby. A lot of black people watch basketball. Oh, let's just release it during that time. That's all I'm saying. But I just
conspiracy, man.
I don't know if it's a conspiracy or smart marketing. It's like when they released all those American Sniper trailers during Sunday Night Football. That's why I made $200 million opening weekend or whatever.
Oh, clever
girl. Yeah. No, but overall, the actual trailer itself. Everything that I've seen in that trailer, I have seen before in other movies, and other superhero films, let alone other movies. And we've seen the guy in black stalks, whether it be Daredevil or Batman, and we've seen Black Panther, kick butt and hurt people before in other movies. I don't know. The only thing about the film that really excites me is that we're seeing, Martin Freeman and Andy Serkis talk to each other again. I'm like, hey, Bilbo and Gollum. I guess...
So the most exciting thing about the Black Panther movie for you is the two white guys talking.
Well, look, Chadwick Boseman is fantastic. I'm not a fan of the chick from Walking Dead. Michael B. Jordan's always great. I'm a little upset that they wasted Michael B. Jordan on a Marvel villain, because this is kind of his second chance after Fanforstic, and he went from being an almost promising character in what could have been a good film to being wasted as a Marvel villain. And we always know, with the exception of maybe 3 characters, Marvel villains have never been fantastic. I don't know. No pun intended.
But speaking of Fanforstic, though, while I remember, do you know what June 9th was?
The official date for the Fanforstic sequel.
Yes.
Yeah.
I don't know about you, but I loved it. I thought it was great.
Yeah,
I enjoyed it.
I mean, I think the way they handled Mole Man, I think the way they somehow were able to set the X-Men crossover, that was really nice. They didn't force it too much. They just a portal opened up, and we saw some claws stick through. The X-Men theme song kicked in, and it faded to black. And I'm ready for the sequel in 2019. I can't wait for it.
Yeah, I loved it when Wonder Woman came along and said, "I think you should go back to Marvel," and then left again.
And then that post-credit scene where you're watching, and I know Lex Luthor's there. You have no idea what's going on. And I think the comic book world has changed now because of the Fanforstic sequel. And Fant 5-Stick, what a fantastic title! Who would think,
Fant 5-Stick. And somewhere, a marketing department is now shooting themselves. but yeah, anyway, for Black Panther...
I can just imagine, there's a guy there, I just say Fed 5 you just hear... Oh, God. You just hear a body hit the floor like a thud. Oh, God.
Have you seen the IT crowd before, where the guy is at the business table, he just casually stands up and just jumps out the window?
Oh, God.
It's that's it.
It is surely the end of times.
But as for the Black Panther trailer, I wouldn't rank it too highly in terms of other MCU trailers or MCU films that I'm looking forward to. But I liked what I saw. I think the aesthetic in terms of the MCU looks really striking. I like the cast that they've got on board. This is a terrific ensemble.
Yes.
And we already know that Chadwick Boseman is going to be awesome because we saw him be amazing in Civil War. So it's mainly because of that precedent that I'm looking forward to Black Panther. I want to see more of it.
You saw Creed, didn't you?
I did, yeah. Really enjoyed it.
Creed is the reason I'm looking forward to it, because I know Ryan Coogler can do the... I knew he could do the acting and the drama well, the character from Fruitvale Station, but Creed showed me that he can do action well, he can do choreography pretty well, he knows how to shoot a good fight scene. And I think Civil War showed me that the Black Panther character is one that I can be interested in watching, especially because he has to now live with the guilt of... his father's killer is still alive, and he now has to be the king of a country, which is a great balance. It's like, what if Simba was a superhero? Is that racist? I don't care. But it's I don't know. I just
how is that racist?
I don't know. They're both from
against
Africa.
Lions.
They're both from.
Are you
Africa.
saying that lions can't be heroes?
No, actually, no. They can. They can be killer predators that eat other young. Animal Kingdom.
They're a hero to somebody.
Yeah, I suppose. I feel like. I was really looking forward to the film because I really trust Ryan Coogler and I love the cast, you're right. But the trailer just really, it felt incredibly lackluster to me. Everyone's freaking out over it. I'm like, why? Everyone's like, oh, look at that really cool shot of him flipping over the car and landing on the car. I'm like, you mean like the thing he did in Civil War where he was already on top of another car doing a cool stunt? And it's poorly lit and the CG does not look great, but it's out in like, what, 8 months? So they have time to fix it. I'll
250 days.
250 days. Oh, that means Star Wars is so close. In other news.
Are you going to use, how many Star Wars away is it? It's 1.5 Star Wars.
We ought to get a title for Han Solo pretty soon since Han Solo comes out about it. You know what? I'm digressing. Speaking of which, we're prepped for a new trailer pretty soon. We got to get a new trailer in about a month or so. All right. Any Hoosers. That's all the movie news I have here. Shall we get to the homework?
Yeah, let's do it.
All right, let's get to the homework.
This week, each one of you has a homework assignment.
Your homework is to listen to some real music, get inspired.
Is this your homework, Larry?
Down with homework?
Alright guys, this is the homework portion of the show. We should talk about all the films we were either assigned to see or just saw on our own. So we're going to do kind of a spoiler discussion after we talk about the newer films, the newer being the films that we didn't talk about last week on the show. Because essentially what I'm going to do is I'm going to bring up one movie that I saw, as a movie I saw like that was independent of the movies from last week, and the rest will just be spoiler discussions for last week's films. So the first one I saw, it was a stop motion animated film that was nominated for Best Animated Picture, there it is, at this past year's Oscars. It's called My Life as a Zucchini. And I've been very interested in this film for quite some time, and I finally got around to watching it. It's summertime, and I had the free time on me, and I watched it. And My Life as a Zucchini, I believe it's French. I don't know. The subtitles, I believe, I believe it was French. They said "we" a lot, so there it is. Unless it was a Japanese product placement. That's a... No? Anybody? Okay, never mind. Joke over.
Get off the stage!
Alright, I'm going home. and My Life as a Zucchini tells the story of this boy who goes by the name of Zucchini. That's what he likes to be called. And after a tragedy is sent to an orphanage... hint what the tragedy is is sent to an orphanage, and he kind of has to, it's essentially more or less I don't know if a case study is a character study, is that what you say? It's just a character piece about this kid kind of growing up in this orphanage and the life he is living for, like, I guess a few weeks. And it's so... My first comment when I saw it, I was like, this is so French. I don't know, that was my first comment. It's like, when you saw Anomalisa, and you're like, man, this is really Oscar. There's certain movies that, like, when the first frame happens, like, they really are going for something else here. But the difference being is that, much like Anomalisa, My Life as a Zucchini is fantastic. And it's definitely not a movie for kids, and maybe it was the English translations that didn't work out very well, but it's incredibly vulgar. But it's vulgar in that way of, excuse me, it's vulgar in that way of that, like when you watch a movie like maybe The Goonies or like Super 8, Stranger Things, where like that's how kids would talk to each other. Because sometimes kids, especially kids growing up in an orphanage, don't know about certain things like love or hormones, and they just kind of describe things without having any kind of social filters, and that's just how kids are. And as someone who grew up being a child, as everyone else has, I can say that is oddly accurate to people who don't know things about social norms, and kids just kind of will blurt out anything that's on their mind. So if they want to yell out the word boner in front of an adult, they will. And but it's definitely... It's this. I don't want to give too much plot wise, because there's not a lot of plot. It's mainly just about these events that happen in this kid's life, but it's. I think the best way to describe it is that it's very raw in its emotion, and it's a film that doesn't let up the fact that the world is incredibly unkind, and that in spite of all the good people around you, all it takes is one bad person for things to go bad. And I think that the film never forgets to be a real film. Like, when the main character first gets to the orphanage, he immediately starts getting picked on by this kid, and like, oh, okay, he's going to be the generic douchebag of the movie. But within a few minutes, things change, and characters are realized, and you understand that these are all just kids attempting to adapt to the world that they are put in. Because it's an orphanage, it's a foster home. So clearly all these kids are here from unfortunate circumstances. And I also really respect the film for not using the backstories of the kids as a way to gather emotion out of you, not to manipulate emotion out of you, but more or less just to present the world as how it is. There's one character that they may hint towards sexual abuse, but they never flat out say it. And I think that it's a really... Have you ever heard of this film, Tillbee?
I have, because it was nominated for best
animated
foreign language film, wasn't it?
I thought
animated.
it was best animated. Yeah.
I think it was. It made the shortlist for best foreign language because and then it was nominated for best animated. It's the stop motion film, like the kid with blue hair, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. I've been wanting to see it. It just hasn't really had much of a screening presence in the UK.
Yeah, well, there are ways.
Dark ways.
and the film, and speaking of it's an animated film, the animation style, it's beautiful, and also it has, well, when I say it's very French in the same way that I don't know, it feels very Wes Anderson in the sense of I'm clearly watching things being moved on a set, but when you can move past the kind of odd animation, almost sometimes Tim Burton-esque looks of the characters, and you just sit down and the film's never afraid to just have people sit against a wall and talk to each other for 10 minutes. And keep in mind the film is 70 minutes long, so that's it's another respectful thing that the film does, and I really enjoyed the film, and I think it's a film that it walks this really fine line, a film much like Juno, in the sense that it's a film not meant for its target audience, or not meant for the audience. It's a film not meant for people that the film was about, but you can show it to the film. You can show it to people, how do I put this? It's a film about kids in a foster home that you could show probably to kids in a foster home, but it's not for little kids. But it is a film I think certain kids do need to see. It's not like Inside Out where show this to all the kids so that they can learn about emotion. It's a film that's heavier, but I think if there are certain people that need to definitely see this film, and I can again respect the film for doing everything it does and doing it so respectfully. I'll go 8.5 out of 10. I really liked it.
Okay, so if I can ask you, because I've not seen this yet,
yes,
is it a film that you feel has to have been done in stop motion, has to be done in this style? Because for example, for Anomalisa, I felt like it really justified being stop motion because of the conceit of having the face plates on the characters. And,
yes.
I felt like that was something that couldn't really be communicated effectively in live action.
Well, it's definitely not as surreal as Anomalisa is, but I think that, I don't know if it per se needs to be in stop motion, but I think the stop motion allows things to be digested easier. You know what I'm saying? That's why I think it's easier for kids that are going through something like this to watch it and have a better time with it, because I think if it was regular people doing things that happen in this film, it would be far less appropriate for children to watch. But I think the stop motion helps things get it down, because there's a lot of color, there's a lot of there's some lighthearted moments with the animation that you can't per se do in live action. Yeah.
Alright, cool. But yeah, the reason I thought it was best foreign language nominee was because it made the short list, but it didn't get to the final nominations.
Oh,
I'm just looking into the film now.
Yeah, it's a good film.
Mm-hmm. I've heard. I do want to check it out. I've heard good things, along with Red Turtle, which was the other
that was the other
animated film.
Yeah, I still think, looking back on all the nominees, I haven't seen Red Turtle, but looking back, I still would have had Kubo win. It was Kubo, Zootopia. Was Moana nominated?
Moana was, yeah.
It was Kubo, Zootopia, Moana, Red Turtle, and Zucchini. I would have Kubo win. Just because Kubo does something similar to Zucchini, but just doesn't. It's Kubo's such a good movie. I recently watched it on Netflix. It's on Netflix now, and my God, it's fantastic. All right. Know. Yeah, it's damn it, Bandit. God, it's so good. Okay. Tillbee, did you see anything new besides the movies we saw last week?
Yes. Now, I had a few DVDs with me on my trip to London, and I thought, okay, well, I can use this 5-hour bus journey, this 5-hour coach journey to watch something. But in the seat next to me is a mum with her baby daughter, and I was like, okay, so what can I watch that's in case she looks over or the kid looks at?
Can we start spreading a hashtag around? Can we do hashtag 5-hour coach flight? I don't know. I just like that expression, my 5-hour coach flight, as if you had to specify that you flew coach. I don't know.
Oh no, sorry, a coach as in it was a bus.
Oh! You know what?
Yeah.
We had this conversation last week.
We did. I think we might have had it off air.
Oh,
but,
yeah.
Maybe, but yeah, and I thought, okay, so what can I put on my laptop that this mum and her kid won't look at and just either immediately judge me or see something really out of context, gory, horrible, and stuff. Okay,
you watched, you put a double feature of Evil Dead and Wolf of Wall Street, yeah?
Well, I was thinking more Hacksaw Ridge.
Ah, yeah,
and I thought, okay,
isn't that terrible? It's just
no, but as in, what if it's really gory and messed up and this kid looks over and gets
that part
scarred
where the guy's body springs up and blood spurts him. God, that movie's great. Okay, yeah.
Yeah, so I thought, okay, so something I can... Okay, I happen to have The Edge of 17 here. So I'm going to check that out, and that seems perfectly innocent. It was fine, yeah. That nobody got got scarred for life if they looked at my laptop screen for a brief moment. And what I was treated to is actually a really good coming of age film. It came out last year. It was it's directed and written by Kelly Freeman Craig, and it stars Haley Steinfeld and Woody Harrelson. But it's mainly Haley Steinfeld's film. It's about this 17-year-old girl who has very much grown up in the shadow of her older brother, who is just physically perfect and really popular and confident and outgoing, whereas she kind of hates people and is really socially awkward and says the worst thing at the worst possible time. And what happens is that she's got a best friend who she's been best friends with this other girl for about 10 or 11 years, and her friend starts dating her brother, and she sees that as a massive betrayal of trust. And the film chronicles this about a week or two after they start dating, where Haley Steinfeld's character just really starts descending into madness, in a sense, how her life just sort of spirals out, and she just emotionally starts to lose it. And in the background, you've got this character played by Woody Harrelson, who is her history teacher, who just hates life, who just puts on a old documentary about Abraham Lincoln and then just walks out the room, and that's the 2-hour lesson. And he's just really dismissive and deadpan, and has some really awesome and funny insults. And if you've seen the trailer, you'll see the dynamic that the two characters have. But it's a really clever and really smart coming of age film in the way like a John Hughes film was, except whereas John Hughes was more of an ensemble cast, this is more honed into just this character's psyche.
Is the character ridiculously unlikable, like in most John Hughes movies?
She's there's a lot of moments where you just think, holy shit, just grow the hell up, or just stop thinking this is all about you. But that is part of the point, because when you're a young teenage, particularly a teenage girl, where your hormones are all over the place, and you're already like you've got a lot of family baggage. Like
well, as a teenage girl, Tillbee, you ought to know.
Yeah. When I used to be a teenage girl, this is the type of film I really needed to watch to just sort of let me know that life wasn't always about me. But it's really cleverly done, because she had a great connection with her dad, but her dad died of a heart attack a few years before the movie takes place. Her brother is like physically perfect and really popular and awesome, and her mum just does not understand her, so she's very much alone in this film. And when she loses what she sees as this connection to her friend, to her brother, she just really starts to she's kind of forced to grow up on her own, and she's just unable to cope with it.
Is it
There's
truly
a lot of
that big of a deal to have your best friend be dating your brother?
That's part of the point. Like she is the only person who kind of sees this as a massive big deal, and you kind of understand it because they set up their relationship really well and how she sees.
Is the brother not a nice person?
A brother's a bit of a jock. But
Okay.
but he is really well humanized. All of the cast are well humanized, and even though this is Haley Steinfeld's film, she carries this friggin' thing. She carries it all. There are still like great glimpses of humanity for the whole cast. There's some really great performances here. Blake Jenner plays her older brother. Woody Harrelson is great, as I mentioned before, and Haley Lou Richardson plays the best friend who is dating the brother. Really great cast all around. And it's a small scale film where it mostly takes place in the high school that she goes to, and just in a handful of locations. The budget is small and it feels small, but the story and the emotions are big.
Bet it was a nightmare to shoot if anything's been exhibited.
God say, Haley Steinfeld, why are you peeping through the door? That's a throwback to a conversation that probably won't make it into the podcast. But yeah, and I think this is just looking at the director. This is she wrote and directed it, and this is her feature film debut. And I think that she's really got her finger on the pulse of just the younger generation, and just how it feels to be kind of. Because Haley Steinfeld, she's sort of like a hipster character, and she's like, I feel like I was born way too late, and I just don't understand the hip kids and all their iPhones and their tweeting, and they're always looking at phone screens. And that sort of narcissism on her part, like, it's all about her having to realise that the world does not revolve around her, and that she is going to have to compromise with the people in her family, and she is going to have to grow up. And the way the film unfolds that narrative over the course of the film, and allows her to learn that lesson in a compelling and believable way, I thought it was really well communicated. It was a really smartly handled screenplay. I think that the low budget is kind of on display, and it feels like maybe it could have used a couple more scenes with the brother and the and the best friend, maybe to expand on their relationship a bit more. But this is from Haley Steinfeld's perspective, so I can see why they didn't do that. But it's a really good film, and if you're a young teenage girl like me, I think you should give it a watch and sort of imparts the life lessons. It was distributed by STX Entertainment, who are doing a really good job at finding these smaller films and giving them an audience, like The Gift or Hardcore Henry and Bad Moms. They're putting together quite a fine slate of counter-programming films, and I think this is just another great film to add to the list. I enjoyed Edge of 17. Let's call it an 8 out of 10.
Right on. Okay. Well, yeah. Well, I definitely need to check it out. I need to definitely put it on. It's on my list. So whenever I get the chance, it's summertime now, so I can finally sit down and watch a lot of movies. I rewatched No Country for Old Men recently. Hence, yeah. Oddly enough, I watched it after I wrote my thing I'm writing, but whatever.
Is the thing you're writing, in case the audience don't know, is it a thesis on No Country for Old Men?
No.
I wrote 50,000 words on it before even watching the film.
No,
I
for people that don't know, in case I didn't put this in the podcast, my next project I'm in the middle of writing of, and after I watched No Country for Old Men, I turned to the start of my script and I said, I started writing No Country for Old Men, and I felt really bad. I just kind of sat there and just went, because I didn't mean to. I hadn't watched it in like a year. No, it's a great film though. I also, what's that?
So something I just remembered about Edge of 17, which I forgot. You know, Gracie Films. It's a film production company. Basically, if you watch The Simpsons to the end of the credits, and it's like shh dun 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 dun, that opens The Edge of 17, and I was like, holy shit, that's a throwback. Because they named Gracie Films as one of the production companies of Edge of 17, and it was just so jarring to be met with that opening logo. I was like,
not follow like The Critic or Simpsons or something.
Oh, The Simpsons, yeah. I was like, oh my god, what's this doing here?
Shout out to The Critic, by the way. Good show. Didn't live long. Shout out to The Critic.
It stinks. It stinks.
Oh. I see what you're doing, and I disagree. Anyways, where was I? Okay, so I watched a few more films. Let's get into this. You know what? Before we jump into that, I'm going to talk about this film that I also saw. Netflix is a beautiful time when you need to kill some time over the summer. And one of the great films you should probably watch while at 8:30 at night is David Fincher's Zodiac. And so that is what I watched at 8:30 at night. And I had never seen the film before. And I got to say, I'm never going into a basement ever again. Full spoiler. Well, have you seen Zodiac?
I have, but not for a long time.
Okay, well, full spoilers for the movie Zodiac. Allow me to give I'll give a brief, non-spoiler description and quick look at the movie. But it's 10 years old at this point. Zodiac. It's about the Zodiac killer in the late 1960s, early 1970s, killing in San Francisco and sending letters to the San Francisco Police Department and the San Francisco Chronicle, the big newspaper of the city, and it tells the story of the detective, played by Mark Ruffalo, and the reporter, a detective and a couple of reporters at the Chronicle, attempting to decode and find out who the Zodiac Killer is. And it's directed by David Fincher of Seven, Fight Club, Gone Girl, Social Network, and it's just another tense, gripping, really good entry in his filmography that I hadn't seen before. And I think it was the only one besides The Game that I hadn't seen. So, I'll tell you this: there were certain things that it's not a perfect film. So maybe that's why, because this is one of the infamous films where Fincher had somebody do 70 takes of something so small, like getting out of a car door or something, and I just think, why? But if that's his vision, that's his vision. But there is a scene, and now we're going into the spoilers, and there's a scene in Zodiac where Jake Gyllenhaal, towards the end, who plays a cartoonist / reporter for the San Francisco Chronicle, who ended up writing a book on this whole thing, he thinks he's going to get the last clue, because one of the big things about the Zodiac is the Zodiac's handwriting matches the handwriting to someone who draws movie posters for a local theater that played a movie that may have inspired the Zodiac, and he goes and visits one of the guys that works at the movie theater, and he says, "Hey, I just need something confirmed for the blah 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 because I have these movie posters, and I think this guy who drew them blah blah blah." And then the guy goes, "I'm sorry, sir, but I drew the movie posters." And from that point on, if I was in the movie theater, I'm sure the whole audience would go, "Oh my god, leave, get out." You could hear the collective. It's amazing how a director can have that emotion play out in just a look on his face, and like it cuts to the single of Jake Gyllenhaal, and it's just his face of just like, I need to leave, and yet the guy walks over to his this door, it opens, it's like, you know what, I've got some copies of the movie posters, I've got some copies of the film stuff, it's down here in the basement. And the light cuts on, and Jake Gyllenhaal, he looks dead at the camera and says, "Not many people have basements in California." And it's a direct callback to maybe 25 minutes into the movie, someone mentions a basement, and someone says, "Not many people have basements in California," and you forget about it. You forget that line's in the movie, and then I know where Jake Gyllenhaal goes, "Not many people have basements in California," and I literally wet myself. I said, "Oh my god, no! Oh my god, no!" And Jake Gyllenhaal goes in the basement. He goes in the guy's basement. But it's just this, it's a tense sequence where nothing ends up happening. The guy's not the Zodiac killer, even though you're convinced that he is, but he's not. And it's just, we never find out who the Zodiac killer is. It's a really tense, really well crafted, but if it is not methodical, it is so slowly paced in how they handle everything. It's somehow slow and confusing, if that makes any sense. But I think that's exactly what Fincher was trying to go through, kind of the plotting of trying to catch this guy, but also the confusion of not knowing what's going on. It's a very well-crafted film, and I've given it an 8 out of 10. I just wanted to briefly talk about Zodiac, because I really enjoyed watching that experience. And the movie finishes, it's about 11 o'clock, and I say, well, you know what? I ought to watch something else. I'm not tired. I'm all tense up. You know what? I never finished it, so let's try watching The Shining. So I watched The Shining, and I didn't sleep that night. This was Thursday. I didn't sleep. I couldn't do it. I didn't sleep, and it was, oh my, yeah. And I had never seen it in its entirety, and I think not enough credit goes. I've seen a lot of people talk about The Shining, and I knew certain images from it, from things being parodied and people analyzing the film and whatnot. And I think, to me, you've seen The Shining, obviously.
Yes.
Yeah, you're a film guy. I'd imagine you've seen it. Did you like it?
Yeah. I do. I think that some of the elements are just deliberately obtuse for the sake of it. But I think in terms, it's a trip.
It's one of the best soundtracks to any movie ever, in my opinion. You know, It's like Star Wars, Jaws, The Shining. Because I don't know if you think Star Wars needs the music, I imagine watching The Shining on mute. You know what I'm saying? I want to see if I could find The Shining without music, because the soundtrack in this film is so terrifying, and it's 80% of what makes the film scary, in my opinion. But there is one scene that I don't think I'll ever be able to watch again without wetting myself, and that's, he's escaped Jack Nicholson from being Jack Nicholson, and he's running in the maze, and he's being chased, and there's just this really long shot of Danny running through this snow-covered maze, and the camera's pushing in closer and closer to Danny, and I just felt so terrified for Danny. I genuinely turned around to make sure there was nothing behind me. Tillbee, I'm sitting in my bed. My door's locked. I have a locked front door, and my door is locked. There's no way anything's gonna get to me, and yet I still turned around behind me. I think that's good filmmaking, and that movie had me terrified for quite a bit of it. Yeah, but of course, you said there are some parts that feel obtuse. How do you mean?
Well, there's the weird bear giving the guy a blowjob.
That was odd. That was odd.
A few elements like that, which just I just think I'm not a fan of just obtuse or subliminal stuff without much substance to back it up. No, I'm not saying The Shining doesn't have any substance to it. I just think it's more interesting to watch this guy completely lose control of his sanity through potentially supernatural forces in this house. And I just think the rest of it is just I don't know, it's just a bit annoying.
Until I corrected him. Jesus.
It's something that if it wasn't for Jack Nicholson's just fearless performance, it would be half the film it was.
But I will say I don't think it's the hailed classic that everyone claims it to be. But I did enjoy it. I mean, I'll go like a 7.9 out of 10. I did enjoy it. But what I will say is he kind of I never really understand why Shelley Duvall and his son would ever consider going up into a hotel with that man, because from frame one he doesn't seem like he's all right. You know what I mean? Just from frame, maybe that's just Jack Nicholson in general, but like Jack Nicholson in One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest, I would rather go into a hotel with him than I would, the Jack from The Shining. I don't know. I feel like he was always crazy, and maybe that's what the film's trying to get at. Maybe the film's trying to be like, he was always crazy. It was never the hotel. He was just seeing things. But
I think Duvall's performance in the film just sort of subliminally hints that like maybe Jack Nicholson's character is, in a way, just like emotionally abusive already. Yeah. And the house that they're staying in just sort of brings that out of him even more.
I do like that reveal of all work and no play makes Jack a dull boy. That was. I think that's a great reveal. Where like he goes down and it's
that whole sequence, when she's flinging flailing with the bat on the steps, and he's like, "They give me the bat, give me the bat. You didn't hear me. I'm not gonna hit you. I'm just gonna bash your brains in."
It's like, you didn't let me finish, hon. I was like, it's so great. And there are a lot of bits in the film. I think the Shining has a lot of great moments, and if it's not the maze scene that gets me, it's when Jack Nicholson, it's like he starts. I was watching it, and my girlfriend was on the phone with me when I was watching, because she had already seen it and she didn't think it was that scary. And I was like, what's with this lady in the bathtub? And she's like, oh. And I was like, what? And then this lady, like, she just gets out. And I believe my exact words, my first saw her, were, they didn't shave back then, do they? And I was just like, this is odd. I'm like, where's this going? And then she turns into an old lady. It's this rotting, old, disgusting corpse. And I jumped out of my seat. I was like, oh god! It's like in Joaquin Phoenix in Signs when he sees the alien. It was just like that. And then she's like, she starts like leaning towards him, like chasing him, and it's cackling. And when the ball rolls at Danny when he first goes by room 237, and it's open, another good moment. He's just on his tricycle, and I think this is before he sees the twins, and he's just playing with his toys, and a ball rolls into frame. That is such a simple and clever scare. It's far scarier than a lot of stuff they put in modern day horror films. I don't know. I did like it though, and I'm glad I saw it. I feel like as a film fan, I kind of had to see it because it's Kubrick. I've already seen 2001.
It is a bucket list film. Where it's one of those ones where you apparently have to see it before you die and all that stuff.
Well, I think it's nice to see what things that it has inspired. I think there are films that have done things better than The Shining, but you can clearly see that people are getting certain things. Oh, my cousin's in a good mood. He's laughing now. But he's unless he's not home and I'm just being haunted by spirits.
Unless he just really likes The Shining.
That's right. All work and no play. He's just cackling. Yeah. All right.
It's gonna be like, have you seen Trainspotting?
Yeah.
He's just gonna start crawling on the ceiling.
A bucket for piss. A bucket for Okay. Anyways. So did you see anything else? I have a lot of things to talk about this. So I don't know if you want to.
I didn't see anything new this week. No, having been in London, I didn't really have time to watch any of the new releases. Like, I think I joined most of the world in not watching The Mummy.
Okay.
I will see it next week though. But it's mainly just the stuff that I saw last week that you hadn't seen by the time we recorded, and now you have since seen.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure that same night after we recorded the podcast, I watched Alien Covenant. And look, here's what I will say.
Where did he get his hoodie from?
I don't. Honestly, Tillbee, I don't. My first thought was, he caught it off like in the body of an engineer, but that's not possible. I honestly don't know. My biggest question is, and spoilers for everything Covenant. My biggest question is, if the black goo didn't affect vegetation, then how did the spores become the black goo? That's my biggest question in the entire film. Anyways, if you don't trust David, why do you put your face in front of this thing that's clearly moving? And clearly, you walked past his H.R. Geiger concept designs, and you clearly see there that whatever is here is not right, and you've clearly seen things pop out of people and get into people's mouths at this point, Captain. So why the hell do you put your face next to this thing? Okay. Alien Covenant.
In the trailers, that scene where Danny Crudup puts his face over the alien egg, I kind of maybe believed that in the trailer.
Yeah.
Because it's like, oh, it's something new.
It's edited like they don't know what it is.
Yeah, you've not watched an alien movie before, as in the character doing it.
That's my excuse in all those movies. I'm like, they have no idea what a xenomorph is, so that's why they get to act stupid at that point.
But with the additional context that the film provides, with David being in the room egging him on to do it...
No pun, it's Tillbee. Tillbee.
Didn't even mean to do it, that's how good I am.
Get out.
Sorry, the Oscar-winning dialogue just oozes out of me.
Oh, Jesus. No, listen, alright, look, Alien Covenant is not a bad movie, in my opinion. It's not a good movie, but it's not a bad movie. In fact, the first third was incredibly promising to me. Like, 40 minutes in, I'm like, I don't get what the big deal is. I'm really liking this. I like the characters. I love Walter. I thought the Michael Fassbender discussion at the start with David was, while irritating continuity-wise, I thought was a far more subtle, quote-unquote, compared to Prometheus. I thought they handled that situation far better than anything they tried to do in Prometheus. Keep in mind, I like Prometheus. And, even after, the guy gets infected, he's getting sick... And besides some minor weird things, like going to take a piss and then never actually going to take a piss, okay, sure. But, like, besides minor things like that, I was enjoying this. My first big problem lies in... So they get to the med bay, and she locks them both in because she has blood on her stuff. And she's like, I can't let you out, even though... His back, he threw up blood on the girl's shirt, but his back exploded or whatever and got on the girl's face, but she's fine being locked outside the med bay. But here's my thing. When someone is sick and has the flu, if they're walking around coughing on everything, what do you do, Tillbee?
Kill him.
Yes, sure. You burn them alive.
God forbid I get sick.
Well, that's what I've said. That's what I want.
I'm more of like an extremist type of guy. I either want to be well or I want to be dead.
Yeah. Well,
I don't want to be ill.
The right answer is you walk outside and call in the nuke. But he's walking in these hallways and he's walking and his face is like pointing at the walls and the guns and stuff, and he's just like coughing all over this stuff. I'm like, the whole ship is already contaminated. He's walking over and coughing on literally everything. I let that go. I said, you know what, fine, it's a horror film. We'll take our liberties. Okay. So then she gets the blood in her face and says, I have to lock you in the med bay. I'm like, okay, you know what, that's fine. They want to get some cool kills, let's get some cool kills. And I'll tell you what, for a majority of that scene, the backburster sequence, I actually really enjoyed. Keep in mind, I didn't watch this film in the theater, but I thought the CG looked fine for being shot on a 4D quality camera. I thought the CG looked fine when it first comes out of the guy, and I thought it was really cool how, people were slipping on the blood. I thought it was like, it's that kind of classic horror movie, like, where you sit at the theater and go, oh man, oh gross.
See, I found that unintentionally funny when she slipped on the blood.
I thought that, I think you're supposed to laugh there. I honestly think you are supposed to laugh there. I think it's one of those, it's the equivalent of someone tripping in a horror film, like, oh, of course they trip in a horror film. I feel like that was intentional. Maybe it wasn't, but either way, I laughed. And I just... And pretty much that entire sequence, like, oh my god, drink the glass. Oh, we have to kill it. So, Tillbee, let's play a game. Let's say you're in a room and you're in this kind of, let's say it's about the size of a bedroom, your average bedroom, and this baby tiger that has the speed of this baby cheetah, runs at the regular speed of a cheetah, is coming at you, and you have a gun, and to the right is an empty room, and to the left is a bunch of explosive barrels. Do you shoot the barrels?
Is this a trick question? Because considering how I answered the last question, I'm more. let's blow up the barrels.
I forget Tillbee's an extremist. No, she shoots the barrels and the whole ship explodes. Like, first of all,
there was a better way to handle this.
That shouldn't be that shouldn't be possible. You shouldn't have things that can blow up your entire ship because, like, if someone tripped and, like, or if someone accidentally shot a gun, like, even if those things were to explode, that shouldn't have blown up the entire ship. I'm just, okay, whatever. And
it's one of those, like, video game rules where
Yeah.
if you shoot a barrel that is red, no matter what it contains, it will blow up.
It could be baked beans and it'll just explode, just shatter.
Yeah.
But, like, it's just a thing of, I'm like, I kind of just was dumbfounded when I turned and I paused it and because I paused it. Maybe
You
I
Neil
did.
Blomkamp'd it.
I chappied it and I was like, "Are you really okay?" There was a few moments of the film where I was like, "Okay, all right." I mean, I guess the film didn't lose me at that point. The film still had me. It. It keeps going though. It does. It kind of keeps escalating. So, I get what Ridley was trying to do with the whole... This film kind of feels pointless, because by the time the film ends, the Covenant's just off, presumably going to be... I presume the planet's it's gonna crash in LV-426, but there is no... My cousin's very happy right now, but there's no evidence of the Covenant ship ever being an LV-426, because it's the ship from Prometheus that's an LV-426. So what's it doing? I don't understand at all where the Covenant ship fits in, because besides it there being 2,600 hosts to create the xenomorph, which, why would David create the xenomorph? But whatever. I don't understand, like, the xenomorph isn't smarter than David, so why would he be worried of trying to make something smart? Like, humanity attempted to create something and made something smarter, and David wants to be the next step in that evolution, but the xenomorph isn't smarter than an android. Alien Covenant's not a bad film. It's just it's a very disappointing one, though. And it's a shame, because when it's just an Alien remake, it works fine. When it's just when they just Force Awakens Alien, it works okay. It's a decent Alien slasher flick where people just got back on the ship and there's been lots of death, but let's go fuck in the shower. Pardon my French. I'm sorry. But, like, that's
it's an accurate term.
That might be my biggest problem with the movie. It's like, what are these two idiots doing? People have died. I guess they were the couple that survived, I suppose, quote unquote, until that point. But, like, what is your... Also, I'm not a fan of the CG alien. I'm not a fan of it. No, I'm not a fan of a CG alien. There's something lackluster when a bunch of pixels is chasing a person as opposed to a 7'10" man in a rubber suit. I don't know. There could have been a lot of practical effects in here, like when the chest burster pops out of bloody Dr. Manhattan. Billy Crudup. When the chest burster pops out of the captain, it should have been. You could have maybe get a little CG blood spurt. Knock my headphones out of my head. It could have been a little CG blood spurt, maybe some CG body flaps, skin flaps, but then you have a puppet crawl out of that guy. You have a guy underneath, and you have a little thing stick out of him, some animatronics, maybe pull it out with some wires and CG out the wires, but, like, no, that shouldn't have been gross. Also, dumbest line of the movie, what do you believe in, David? Creation. Get out of here. Scram, please. I can't deal with you right now, Alien Covenant.
Nah, not a good film. I made my thoughts on it last week. I think you liked it a bit more than me.
I had a good time with it in a lot of different parts. Michael Fassbender does give a fantastic performance. I think as both David. I think he's better as Walter than he is as David, honestly, because David obviously has more complex things, at least towards the start, before he's real just to be an evil person, evil, not likable guy. But I liked Walter. Walter just reminded me he's just a bro. I like Walter. You know? Yeah. Walter reminds me a lot of Tars from Interstellar.
Yeah, I get that vibe. I think Michael Fassbender's sort of better than the material at this point.
Sorry, took a sip of water. Okay. So, the next film I saw, we'll work right through this. We'll build to the kind of good movie here. No, the next one's okay. So I also saw Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2, and I liked it. Oh, Alien Covenant gets a 5.9 out of 10, by the way. I got into a beef with somebody about this on Twitter, by the way. My rating scale of 5.9. Someone said, you can't do 5.5. You can either do 5.5 or 6. You can't do 5.9. I said, I'm sorry if my arbitrary way of rating my opinion on the movie offends you, person. I apologize. I don't, but it's just get over here, go outside, like just go outside, go for a walk, get over yourself, get the fuck off your high horse and go for a swim or something. Jesus, go watch a movie. Jesus, you can't read that. Just shut up. I'm sorry, just get over yourself. It's a number. I kind of like the movie there. That's my review. Anyways, I saw Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2, and I liked it. It's nowhere near, I think, the modern kind of superhero classic that the first one has come to be, but it does do some things that are on par, I think, with the first one. I think it has a better villain than the first one. Full spoilers for Guardians, by the way. I think it has.
Let's go full spoilers right off the bat.
It's definitely got a better villain than the first one. I think the motivations, are far more. I think the motivations are pretty clear in terms of what Ego wanted to do. I don't know. I just feel like. I feel like James Gunn, and I think I put this in my tweet, and I said he really. I feel like he wanted to make something more like Empire Strikes Back, but I feel like he ended up making Return of the Jedi, and I think it's because. The movie opens and essentially like certain things start to happen. I turned to Christian. And I said, "He's just doing Star Wars," and Christian's like, "Yeah, I guess he is." But we have the group separated, and someone goes father revelations, and a sad ending where the hero gets taken, but they can go off and kind of live a better life in the end. Maybe I don't know, but I feel like there's just this long section in the middle that clearly I feel like James Gunn had a first act and had a third act, but didn't have a second act. And so he has a pretty good start with this kind of like almost Star Trek-esque going off in different worlds and meeting new characters and resolving conflicts with these random alien characters. And then we have the third act climax with our villain, but in between we're just kind of like building to a climax, which I guess is what a movie does, but nothing is interesting enough to keep me invested in the story. I was far more invested in the characters than the story, which I guess is maybe what he was going for, but I don't know, I just feel like as a movie it was incredibly incohesive. That being said, it's a very funny movie, and I found myself laughing a lot. I didn't think the bit with the tape was going to make me laugh because I already saw it in the trailer, but it gets the biggest laugh out of me.
It's because there's a weird rule in comedy where if you do a really, really long gag, it stops being funny. But if you keep doing it and the longer it gets, it circles around and becomes funny again.
That bit with Drax, it's like, Drax, do you have any tape? Yeah, like Scotch tape. Then why'd you ask me? God, that was so great. God, that was so perfect. Because you can just picture Drax doing that. And I love that's like, Drax like, no, you are beautiful. Cut to a single on the inside. It's so there are certain bits that I'm Mary Poppins, y'all. It's great.
Oh, have you seen that? They've like there's a person who does custom Funko Pop vinyls, and they've done one where it is Yondu in a Mary Poppins costume.
That's fantastic.
And the box does say Mary Poppins.
It's
great. Not a Yondu one; it's Mary Poppins.
Well, I know. James Gunn, he Instagrammed a picture of Michael Rooker at Comic-Con, or like some kind of convention with someone dressed up as a Yondu and Mary Poppins. It's like a female. It's a woman dressed up as Mary Poppins with like the blue makeup of Yondu, and it's great. I'm like, that's so cute. And I bought the emotion stuff with Yondu. I thought the arc they had with Rocket was pretty nice. If not a bit heavy-handed. But Michael Rooker, I thought, gave a really strong performance. I thought Chris Pratt gave a really strong performance. I thought the film, in when it needed to, felt very real and very emotional. James Gunn is clearly good at giving emotion with your characters. When, I was going to say Kevin Spacey. When Kurt Russell's like, that's why I put the tumor in her head, or whatever. And then Chris Pratt, just without even like a second thought, just like sends like 8 bullets into Kurt Russell this right way. You're like, oh my god. That was a great reveal.
When he says that tumor line, I just felt the whole mood of my screening shift.
Yeah.
And that was quite an awesome thing to be a part of, really.
That's my turn. Like, whenever, like, he's showing off Chris Pratt, all this stuff, I turned to Christian, I said, Lando. And Christian's like, yeah, Lando. And, like, because that's the Darth Vader open up the door moment of, like, oh, I put the tumor in her head. Like, okay, now he's the bad guy. Was that before or after the skulls? I feel like...
I can't remember. I think it was before...
I think the skulls are your stormtroopers in Cloud City moment, and then the tumor is your Darth Vader's behind, let's have dinner moment. But I will say this, I thought his motivation for being, you know, he's it makes sense if you've been around that long, you obviously would, you know, I thought it made sense what he was trying to do, and I bought into it, and Kurt Russell does a very good job. And you can see he is genuinely excited to have a son who can live on his idea of immortality. When Chris Pratt first gets the power, you can see that Kurt Russell is genuinely excited about that. Also, I don't know if that was CG Kurt Russell at the beginning, but I could not tell. I was watching it and I was looking for like little ticks and little things, but they shot it. I feel like Marvel has learned. They've learned.
From what I can tell, it's a combination. I think it's mostly makeup and a little bit of CG.
Yeah,
mostly makeup.
I'm thinking, like, because there was also a lot of OSS over the shoulder shots of the wife and Kurt Russell. I'm like, oh, okay, so you have a double of someone as Kurt Russell right there, and then you can do. I feel like Disney and Marvel have learned, because, like, you know, I think before Kurt Russell, I thought Michael Douglas Ant-Man was the best. I didn't think Robert Downey Jr. looked that realistic, but this was, I was like, hold on, like, that's Kurt Russell. And maybe you're right, maybe it was just makeup, but I bought it entirely. I was very impressed with that CG. If it was CG at all, I was very impressed. I couldn't tell, which which is kind of creepy, because of, like, that's Kurt Russell in the 80s, which scared me. But overall, I did enjoy it. I thought a lot of the characters didn't have enough to do. Maybe that's because I don't know why James Gunn chose to make Groot a baby in this one. It maybe because Baby Groot toys sold so much. I don't know, but, like, Baby Groot was the most useless character in this movie. He literally added nothing to either the plot or to the film at all, pretty much. I thought, for all its awesome things that they had, there were so many things that James Gunn said, oh, well, we did this in the first one, so let's do it again. And except it didn't get a laugh from me. I thought the opening scene terrified me. I said, oh no. We're just gonna get the first movie again. I was so scared that James Gunn was just gonna remake Guardians of the Galaxy 1. And he ends up not doing that, and I appreciate that. But that I wasn't a fan of the opening scene. So it's moments like that which is upsetting, because there's this balance of oh, these moments are good, and then oh, these moments are terrible, and so it kind of averages out to become average. And I guess that's the best way to describe Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2. It's average. I'd say I'd go back and watch it again, you know, on cable or something. I'd probably fast forward and get to the bits like the winking, and, you know, it hurts my nipples. And there are character moments where, like, that's perfect. The dialogue there it's great. When Drax starts, like, gagging, like, what are you doing? It's like, I'm imagining the thought of being physical. Oh my god. Drax and Mantis were great, though. They did have some really good moments. Okay. So I give it, like, a 7.4. I did enjoy it.
Okay.
Yeah.
That seems fair.
Yeah.
Well, because I give it a 7, but I would say it's above average. I think it's a really solid film.
Yeah.
I just think that it begins and ends as a really fun and entertaining blockbuster.
Mm-hmm. I think it's your quintessential Marvel movie, if that makes any sense. You know, fun character,
for better or for worse.
Yeah, fun. Yeah, for better or for worse, your quintessential. It's a lesser Ant-Man, in my opinion. You know, like, you watch Ant-Man, you're like, oh yeah, that was a good Marvel movie. I don't know. I think Ant-Man's a little bit better though. So I think that's all the films I have seen except Wonder Woman. So let me give my brief non-spoiler thoughts on Wonder Woman. I look, it's okay. So how do I say this without not pissing off, like, everybody?
Oh god. It's happening.
Look, guys, I liked it. Look, guys, I
Trey
liked
hated it.
There it goes.
Trey
Guys.
hates women.
Look, guys, I liked Wonder Woman. I didn't love Wonder Woman, but I liked Wonder Woman, and it's mainly because, with the exception of like 30 seconds, the third act is pretty garbage. And a film to me is only as good as its ending. If the film needs to end strong, it doesn't matter how long you run the marathon. If you trip, you don't cross the finish line. You know what I mean? I don't. And I guess I'm giving it. I guess I'm lowering my rating out of spite, but it's just because I can't. Because the film just kind of angered me, and then in my opinion, and I'm gonna get so much hate for this. I can't wait. In my opinion, Man of Steel is better, and I'm not saying that Man of Steel is like the better made film. I'm not saying Zack Snyder is a better director than Patty Jenkins. All I'm saying is that if I had an opportunity to watch Man of Steel or Wonder Woman, I would put on Man of Steel, and that's just my opinion. That's just how I view I like both those movies. Neither of them are perfect, but in a world where I give Man of Steel an 8, Wonder Woman's like a 7.7. It's just this. The first act, essentially the best way to describe it is, like, say you're 15 minutes in, you're like, man, this is a good origin story. This is a good, awesome. They're obviously showing off that women can be great as well as men, but they're not patronizing men in any way. They're not trying to make men less to make the woman appear greater. Ghostbusters, but like and then by the time we get to the second act, you're just kind of like blown away by how this movie is exponentially getting better by the minute. And there's a moment with the shield that we'll get into spoilers that I found myself actually clapping at, and it was so great. And then the third act hits, and suddenly the movie just hits like this brick wall and stops in its tracks and becomes the CGI disgusting crap that DC's been doing for the last 4 years. And I kind of wanted to pause the movie and say, no, Wonder Woman, stop that. But then the movie wants to have this really great moment, and it earned this really great moment involving a plane that I think really makes the film and the ending so powerful, and makes the character of Diana really solidify her as a superhero. And then the movie ends, and you're like, man, I wish they would have had a better ending, better third act, better climax. And it took so much steam out of me that third act was just awful. It really just, everything about it just really rubbed me the wrong way. I don't know. How do you feel about this, Tillbee?
I agree that the third act is its weakest point. However, I think I was so emotionally invested, and I think it's a film that runs more on emotion than it does anything else. And because I was so in tune with it, that the third act doesn't really work, and we'll get into spoilers properly. That I was able to overlook a lot of the issues, while still acknowledging that the third act feels akin to like maybe the first Iron Man, where it's the first 2 acts of that film that people really engage with and enjoy, and the third act just sort of becomes a bog standard. Let's just fight the CGI bad guy.
Quintessential Marvel movie. Yeah.
And I think that if DC were trying to replicate the quote unquote Marvel formula, they did it for better or for worse with the ending of Wonder Woman, where I enjoy the ending for the most part. I just think that it's one of those things where, that scene is so cool. That scene, why did the bad guy do that then?
Yeah.
Like, what's that about? It starts to raise a load of questions post viewing.
Yeah,
but it's still something I was able to not let. It didn't supersede everything that had come before it.
Okay. Well, that's the two of us, I suppose. And let's go into full spoilers now here. Blah, blah, blah. And look, I don't think there's a moment this year that has had me feel more excited, more freaking out in my seat. Maybe, have you seen Get Out? Maybe the auction scene in Get Out. Maybe just go, what, dude? Besides when like they're in no man's land. And it's after the kind of rousing march onto the front, and taking out all the Germans or whatever, and they're in like this town, and there's a sniper, Saving Private Ryan style, and you're like, what? Oh my god, how are they gonna get through this? And like Chris Pine, Steve Trevor lifts up this thing with all his friends, and then he goes, Diana, shield, and it's
such a great callback as well to the beach sequence.
Yes, and and I think that moment happens, and I turned and I just started, guys, I clapped, and people started clapping in the theater, and it was just the rousing moment. I said, if the movie can keep doing things like this and just be this kind of just fantastic piece of entertainment, then it can be where a lot of people are placing it as one of the best comic movies in the genre as a whole. At this point in time, I can't put it there because there is no other moment in the film, as film goes on, that is able to reach that emotional peak as Diana's shield. Except maybe when Steve Trevor dies, because I'll be honest with you, I got very emotional when Steve Trevor died. And it's not...
Part of me really wanted to not know what he was saying to Diana.
Yeah,
I understand that it's in service of the theme of the film, but at first I was like, holy shit, like, he's gonna die, and Wonder Woman's not going to know his last words.
They get that kind of tragedy in there.
Yeah, because I'm a sadistic prick.
I don't think he does. She know? Yeah, she finds out.
She finds out at the end. I was just thinking, oh, maybe you should have not done that.
I think they earned it because they punch you in the dick with the plane exploding. So I think they give you get to get. That moment where he points the gun at the bomb or at the gas or whatever, and just kind of takes breath and just goes, huh, and then just shoots it. I remember I just, if you were sitting next to me, you'd be able to just hear, oh my god, what? No, I was just bubbling in my seat. I was like, no, because they could have easily just had like the plane in the sky and have it blow up, but to go into the cockpit and kind of like Dark Knight Rises, that moment of, this is it, and then to watch the man's face when you realize that he is going to die and everything that he has gone through in this film, it really submits this. It's like when you watch, it may be on a lesser scale, but like when you watch a movie like Logan and you're like, and he, Logan kind of just goes, this is what it feels like, and then he dies. It's that same kind of moment of what it earned, and I think it speaks to how incredible in the film Chris Pine is, because this is his only portrayal as Steve Trevor, but I felt like I had been with this guy for years, and I really didn't want to see him go. And Chris Pine when he turns to him, it's like, maybe Eris isn't real, and you honestly feel like, I felt like these two were genuine characters, and that is what I will say about the third act, is that when he tells her that he has to go and he gives her the watch, he's like, look, I love you, and I thought that's why I feel like it was earned. I feel like they were able to earn their moment, because it is a genuinely heartbreaking scene, and I will say that while you can argue it's a little cheesy, that I was like, you know what, I'm all for it, because the film it's like an Indiana Jones film. It's very adventurous at times, but that Steve Trevor death was not easy to watch. I'll tell you what, I definitely had to wipe my eyes afterwards. It was pretty brutal. Yeah.
No, it was a really good way for the character to go.
Yeah.
But one of the big twists of the film, and it's something that I really, really liked, where it's Wonder Woman. She starts off as this real naive and idealistic warrior who's like, okay, there's the good and there's the evil, and if I stop Ares, then the mankind will stop fighting and everything will be fine. And everyone just sort of kind of humours her on it, because she's the strongest person there, and they need her to accomplish the mission.
Yeah.
And then once he kills, once she kills. Danny Houston's character, Stryker.
German Stryker, essentially.
Yeah, once German Stryker's gone, and they're not stopping, and she just kind of has her whole worldview starts to shift about it, and it's. And when she says that my mother was right, you don't deserve me, you don't deserve us, and Steve Trevor was like, it's not about deserving.
Sorry.
And I think that's just a great moment for both of them, where it's not about whether or not they deserve it. It's about still trying to do the right thing, not because they necessarily deserve it, but because it is the right thing to do.
Yeah, and I think maybe it's because maybe it is because. There are moments like those in that third act where I'm just like, and it kind of makes me angrier when you realize that the actual crux of the third act is Wonder Woman fighting this giant CGI fight, and that just really angered me. And like, because you're right, because that moment is so good. You know what I mean? That moment is so it's so strong. I don't know. I don't know. I just there are certain moments that I think the movie really wanted to they really wanted to and they really earned, and then they kind of throw it all the way. They kind of flush it all down the toilet by Wonder Woman wanting to fight Lupin at the end.
Yeah, it's one of those things where it's like, the moral of the story is that, like, as mankind are, like, as a species, humankind, they are prone to fighting. They do have their own weaknesses, and they do, but we should still help each other out anyway. And then all of a sudden, Ares turns up, and it's like, oh, I was still doing this thing. So, what is the moral here then? What is this about? I guess felt like it was completely at odds with what was being established in the story. And the fact that they had Ares with David Thewlis and he still had his mustache underneath the helmet, it was unintentionally funny.
Here, look, here's what okay, so Ares shows up and the moment Lupin walked in, by the way, on screen, I was like, Ares. I saw my girlfriend, I turned to her, and I was like, Ares. And she was like, huh? And I was like, that's Ares. And she's like, no, it's not. I'm like, watch. I'm like, you're gonna be $5 in about an hour when he shows up as Ares. And it just and I
didn't see it coming.
I was so disappointed in DC because I'm like, how dare you try to do let's do a fake out. Like, no, don't. Oh God. Okay, so Ares shows up, it's Lupin. Lupin shows up and he's like, I never did anything. I never made them go to war. I simply told them and gave them I persuaded them and they wanted to go to war on their own. And you think at first that they're setting up that that Ares is going to be more of an idea than this actual being that she has to fight, and that Ares is just more of this thought, this kind of manifestation of war itself, which he is essentially supposed to be in the Greek mythos. But and I think at first I'm like, man, that's really clever for them to do kind of a Civil War thing and have them not actually fight, but just have Wonder Woman learn the lesson about humanity through this terrifying villain. And then after she fights Ares, everyone's just kind of like, let's hug, let's be people. I'm like, no, you just belittled. So Ares could join everybody then, because if not, then they wouldn't want it. They would still hate the Germans because they're the Germans. Like, why? You can't just have them suddenly all want to be friends with Germans at this point in time. That's not how it works. You can have a moment like in Fury when you've seen Fury, right?
Yes.
Like at the end of Fury where the German kid finds Logan Lerman, but then he realizes that they have more in common than they think, so they don't like hug it out, but they just kind of like pretend not to see each other. Like, that's a moment that you can have. Moments like those where, like, you know, maybe like a moment of, let's say if someone like Chief spots a German and they kind of like point their weapons at each other, and then like Chief just kind of like puts his gun down and the German just kind of walks away. That's okay. But like to just have them be like, let's hug, let's shake hands, America. Like, no, like, don't, no, God, just... The third act really killed me on this movie.
But I guess it feels like a twist for the sake of a twist. Mm-hmm. That this person who was around the whole time actually is the villain and is Ares. It doesn't feel like it's actually in service of anything, especially when you actually look back and you think, okay, it's this guy Morgan, like, or whatever his name was. And it's like, okay, so if he really was Ares and was trying to defeat Wonder Woman or at least get her to join his side, then why does he do the things that he does over the course of the film? Mm-hmm. Like, why does... it's something that doesn't add up, and it's...
I'm like, so if he wants humans to constantly be at war, he's not like, yeah, keep fighting the Germans. He's like, no, let's end the war. Alright.
Yeah.
And keep in mind, did Ares have to work his way into British bureaucracy? Is that... Because if he's always looked like Lupin, since we saw when he became actual Ares, was he just like, did he just kind of like show up and was just like, I'm in politics now? That
must have been the weirdest day in UK Parliament, where this guy in a massive hulking suit of armour showed up and said, I'm in charge now.
Okay. Yeah, you can see why a third act angers me. So, yeah. I will say that second act is one of the best second acts of the year, in my opinion. That No Man's Land sequence.
Yes, it's amazing.
Yes. Also, the Superman homage was pretty sweet. I love that. The outfit.
Which bit was that? Oh, which bit was that?
Well, I mean, just the whole thing of like, you know, how she's dressed. She gets the glasses, the hat, you know, and then and then she blocks the bullet. You know, we even had that kind of Indiana Jones where he punched him and shakes his hand. And that was all that was really nice. I like the movie. I think it's a very I think my exact tweet was, it's a great step in the right direction for DC, but just not a perfect one. It's a film that is nowhere near perfect, but it's exactly where DC needed to go right now. And the best thing about the film for sure is its character. Wonder Woman is established to have a character. She's a genuine hero. And I think DC has finally been able to figure that out. And that's where I really think Zack Snyder is the problem with that foundation of the DC Cinematic Universe. Because while I respect Man of Steel, I really do like Man of Steel for being this kind of out there sci-fi take on Superman. I can't say that, especially I can see his character more in Man of Steel than I can in Batman v Superman, because in Man of Steel, at least with the character choices that he makes, you understand that is the reality that his world is, and you understand that there are certain situations that he has to act because that's how the world is forcing him to act at that point. But in Batman v Superman, he's just a mopey idiot, and that's just neither of those quote unquote heroes are heroes, and by the end they're not heroes. They're cleaning up their own mess, and that's not what a superhero does. And I think with Wonder Woman, at least, she sets out and she says, I'm gonna go kill Ares, and her motivation is she wants to stop war. She wants to make the world a better place. And that's her foundation from the beginning. She's always wants to be there. She always wants to be fighting for the people. What's her line or whatever? She says, fight for those that can, or something like that. That's a great moment. And I just, the moment where they're all dancing after they take the village, and that was, and they're just swaying. Those moments really do work. Just, man, once that third act hits.
Yeah, it's the reason I rate Wonder Woman above Captain America: The First Avengers, because I think that the supporting cast is it's so much more fleshed out.
There's an island full of people that look just like her. Why are we going now? I love that.
Yeah, I did like the Howling Commandos ripoff, for lack of a better term, because I know that it's not really a ripoff, but I thought that they were so much more interesting. Like Ewan Bremner as the Scottish sniper with PTSD who just couldn't make the shot, and there was the chief played by Eugene Brave Rock, who was an actual Native American. And what Patty Jenkins said is that when he was cast for the role, Patty Jenkins said, you can have whatever costume you want. It's your heritage. It's whatever you think supports this character. And that kind of clever creative freedom is something I don't think Zack Snyder would ever have given his cast.
No. He's like Zack Snyder would be like, you're gonna have like robotic face paint, and it's gonna be really interesting to add to the character, and it's gonna make the shot look really nice, guys. And it's like,
you're gonna be ripped and you'll like it.
Zach.
Oh, Snyder.
I feel better. Okay, that's all I'll say about him. Yeah, but overall, I did really enjoy Wonder Woman. I do think it has a lot of problems, but I do think that if DC can take it from here, and I'm taking Justice League out of the equation because I don't know what's happening in that film right now. But if they can do with Wonder Woman and do that with the rest of the DC Cinematic Universe, not necessarily just remake that film, but essentially, have a character with who establishes their moral values and sets themselves up as the good character and sticks with that as the majority of the time goes on, go through a genuine arc, have good supporting characters, and maybe clean up the third act, you have a steady foundation for a good cinematic universe. And the film, by the way, connects very nice and cleanly into the universe. Wayne Enterprise, note from Bruce Wayne, good way to set up that franchise. But that's all they needed, and it works because the movie's essentially about that picture we found in Batman Superman, which was nice. Overall, I did like it. Like I said, 7.7 out of 10.
So this is still related to Wonder Woman, but this is also partially a news story, and it's going to lead into a question that I have for you, Trey. So in its second weekend, the numbers aren't fully in yet, but it's estimated that in its second weekend at the domestic box office, Wonder Woman is going to have quite a very small drop. It's going to be number one. It's going to beat out The Mummy, and it's going to be estimated to drop 45% in its second weekend.
That's pretty good.
Which means in its second weekend, it's going to outperform Batman v Superman, Suicide Squad, and Man of Steel in its second weekend.
It's got legs.
Yes, and it also means that it is the smallest second week drop for any superhero movie since Spider-Man in 2002.
Holy shit!
So with that in mind,
here's what I will say to that comment before I'm gonna interrupt you real quick. Keep in mind the movie only opened at 100 million. If it opens at 150, I feel like the drop would be bigger. But go ahead, yeah.
Mm-hmm. But the fact that it's still performing more than its DCEU predecessors,
yes.
I think is still a very good sign.
Yes.
But for the future of the DC cinematic universe, for Justice League in particular, do you think that the marketing for Justice League is now going to focus much more predominantly on Wonder Woman than it did Batman, Superman, or any of the other members? Such as like the original trailers for the Avengers focusing very much on Tony Stark / Iron Man because he had the more successful films.
I think the film will not only the clips, but I think the way the music is. I think everything's going to feel far more Wonder Woman. I think we're going to get a lot more rousing music as opposed to kind of the Zack Snyder typical music. Like in the Avengers trailers, they're all pretty much, rock music, Tony Stark, 80s, yeah, awesome. But, because that's how they market the Avengers with Tony Stark in it. And so I think now the next Justice League trailer is going to have Wonder Woman in it all over it. She might be on the front of the poster at this point. Then when they do the big theatrical poster, it's going to be in the same way that Tony Stark is like the main head on that Avengers posters. It's going to say Ben Affleck, Gal Gadot, and she's going to be second billing, if not first billing. But Ben Affleck's the bigger star, so probably it's gonna be Batman, and Wonder Woman's gonna be the same size as Batman, and all the music's gonna be rousing and very like Wonder Woman's score, as opposed to kind of the rock music they've had originally, I believe. So I think you're absolutely right. Here's my question for you, Trilby: will this be the first DC film to hit $1 billion?
No, I don't think the initial momentum is there.
Yeah,
but if Wonder Woman 2 comes out in a year or two's time, I know it's not going to, but if hypothetically, I think we could be seeing that. And I think if because Wonder Woman got off to a relatively $100 million opening weekend is nothing to sneeze at. That's a very good opening weekend. But had Suicide Squad and Batman v Superman been much more well received than they were, it's because of those films that this film didn't get off to a much bigger start.
Absolutely.
But I think because Wonder Woman has been so well received and it's not just done well at the box office but critically as well and culturally, I think Justice League just on Wonder Woman alone could have a shot of hitting that $1 billion mark if it is good. If the reviews are good, I think that's going to play into it.
Okay. Well, I think it's definitely going to cross 700, 800 million. We're probably going to end up maybe about 750.
We're currently on about 400.
Are we really? Yeah, we'll round out about 750 because Spider-Man's going to hit and Apes and all that. So we'll end up around 750 probably for the worldwide box office. And I think that if Justice League is going where I think it's going, I think Justice League might have the best chance of hitting $1 billion. But at the same time, Justice League isn't the Avengers in the sense that the world does not have the investment in the Justice League the world had in the Avengers. People went and saw Thor and they loved Iron Man and Thor and Iron Man in the movie together, sick, let's go see that. That's what the Avengers has over Justice League right now. But yeah, I don't know. I honestly can't think about what movie's going to hit $1 billion. Flash.
yeah, if they finally get a director.
Yeah. if they can get a script, Jesus. Yeah.
But yeah, I think that if what's most likely is that the next trailer for Justice League is going to be very Wonder Woman centric.
Yeah, if they do a cast, it's going to be Ben Affleck. Those two are going to be the bills, like the head of the they're definitely going to be the two biggest names on the poster. Yeah. Even if Henry Cavill was in it, I feel like she might get billing above Henry Cavill. because people are really in love with this movie. I can't per se agree and give this movie that kind of like, and I get how important this movie is, and I get how crucial it is that people get to see a good female character portrayed as the lead in their superhero film. I completely understand that. I'm not belittling that in any way possible. I think it's great that DC is able to do this. I think it's great that Patty Jenkins, a female director, has been able to get this kind of success and acclaim around this film. I just think the film has quite a bit of problems, but I still really enjoyed it. Yeah,
I think because me and you, we watch basically almost all of the superhero movies that come out. I think it's more of the average moviegoer who've had comic book fatigue or cinematic universe fatigue. I think it's them who have really latched onto this film. The ones who haven't quite seen all of the tropes, haven't seen all of like these plot elements over and over again, who have really gravitated towards the film.
I mean, there are even some people online, everyone's gaming, everyone's going, 5 out of 5, best comic movie ever. I don't think this is anywhere near as good as a movie like Logan or some of the other stuff Marvel's put out, but
No.
Yeah, no, but I just, and that's what I'm saying, I'm like, there has been some truly fantastic comic movies out there. I don't think Wonder Woman's gonna. I think it'll probably stand the test of time in the sense of like, much like the first Avenger, like look at this really solid foundation to this great franchise. You know what I mean? Like I think people will be able to come back to this film and say this is where it all began. Mm-hmm. All right.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, that's all the movies I saw. Trilby. I saw a lot of movies.
Yeah. Hopefully we'll have more to talk about. I'll actually try and visit the cinema, the theatre this week, and watch a load of stuff.
Yeah.
Hopefully.
Yeah, I've got movies on Netflix I still have to watch. So might just be a collection of old films. I might watch The Mummy. I don't know yet. I might just have a laugh.
We were talking about it off mic. The original Universal Monsters films, they're only about 70 minutes long each.
Okay. Yeah.
They're not a big time sink.
Yeah. And you know what? I would love to, since we're doing these more frequently now, I would love to get back to doing actual topics. I miss doing actual topics, like covering, whether it be a specific film or, our ideas for movies or something like that. But that'll be something we can talk about later and tweet at the fans.
Maybe something in like the fall when there isn't a major movie coming out every week.
Yeah.
Like even though The Mummy, it might not be a good film because it's a whole dark universal monster. It's worth maybe
apparently it opened with them calling it the dark universe. That's really ballsy. You know what I'm saying? To open
especially since there's the whole Warner Brothers lawsuit thing.
And not to mention it's their first. It's the first film, and we don't know anything of quality in this quote-unquote dark universe yet. I like Dracula Untold, but no one else likes Dracula Untold.
Hey, I like the Bat Fist.
Yeah, the Bat Fist was pretty good. I like
That's
pretty much
the most
the whole
audacious,
I think
badass thing I've seen.
Luke Evans deserves more work, and because Luke Evans is good in what everything he does. Everything I've seen him in.
No one's Dracula like Gaston. No one sucks blood like Gaston.
Hey, except LeFou maybe. Heyo. Yeah, but
a random thing, Trey. You did not post a post on the Facebook page asking for listener questions.
We were gonna do the spillover from last week, so we got like 30 something questions last week. So I was just
because like an hour ago I did make that post.
I saw that. I was like, I didn't make that. Yeah,
because I thought you'd forgotten it. And I thought, go on.
Yeah, no, I was just going to do the questions from last week, which I'm still going to do. That being said, Trilby, let's get to the listener questions.
Now I feel like I've fudged it.
You done goofed.
I done goofed, man.
Excuse me. I'd like to ask you a few questions.
Alright guys, this is the listener question portion of the show, because we answer, we answer your listener questions off the Facebook.
Keep going. Never stop.
Off the Facebook page. Trilby, I'll go first. Liam Stobby, sorry Liam, he asked...
I like Stobby as in Dobby. My name is Stobby the House Elf.
And we lost Liam as a fan.
I'm sorry, Stobby. Come back.
Away. Okay.
I'll present you with a sock.
Liam, shut up, Trophy. Liam asks, "What do you think the X-Men films would be like if Marvel Studios made them?" Magneto would not be a good villain, for starters. Well, that's just they don't make good villains, and so it really is as simple as that. Well, they don't make powerful villains. They don't make villains that last. You know?
Yeah, they don't make good villains that like one and done villains. I think villains like Loki who have longer staying power. They're given the time.
We wouldn't get a Magneto in X-Men 2 or First Class where you're like, that is what a great character. You know, we would not get that. Even when they try to do something like that with Mordu, it just came across as kind of flat. So that my first thing is, A, there'd be less of them. B, they'd probably be better than they are now. But C, the Magneto would be awful.
I think if the X-Men were introduced in, let's say, Phase 4, as opposed to already being a part of the MCU, I think we'd see them more as supporting players.
Yeah,
I think we'd see them.
TV.
They might not get their own dedicated film, but they will be a presence in many other films.
Yeah, they might. They definitely would cross with Guardians of the Galaxy. I think that'd be their big thing. Would be like the Phoenix would be something that the Star-Lord and gang would deal with.
Yeah,
that's for sure. All right.
Yeah.
You have a question, Shelby?
Yes. Okay. So this comes from Tom Quirk, who asked quite a few questions, but I'll take one of them. Will they make more Dark Universe movies if The Mummy bombs? It's estimated to make $35 million domestically in its opening weekend, which is a big disappointment. However, internationally, it is the biggest opener of Tom Cruise's career. It is internationally alone. It has already made up its production budget and then some. So if they're going to be we're not going to be seeing Hunchback of Notre Dame. We're going to be seeing Hunchback of China. We're going to be as in they're going to be
Hunchback of the Great Wall. Matt Damon returns.
That would be the worst, but also the best thing ever. But yeah, I think we're going to see these films cater to a much more more international audience, which is not necessarily a bad thing, especially with the European influences of the Universal Monsters films from the 30s, 40s, and 50s. I think what they would do, though, is that they would lower the budgets drastically, and that is not a bad thing. The Mummy's like $125 million production budget.
Why? Why would they ever put $250 million into The Mummy?
No. Sorry, 125.
Well, double that for marketing.
Oh, so, yes. Okay, sorry.
Yeah.
I thought I wasn't sure if I misspoke there.
No, double it for marketing. So, like, why would you ever put $250 million into The Mummy? What's wrong with you? What are you, high?
I think if we saw like these Dark Universe films like skirt around the $50-60 million range, and you rely on practical effects, you rely on the location shooting, because those Universal Monster films they were made with like $20 and a paperclip and a bit of string.
I was gonna say pack a gun with some string. Look here,
exactly.
Look, here's what there's a podcast called Movie Maintenance that the Sanspants Australian guys do. I'm not sure if you've ever heard of it.
I've not heard of it. No.
They essentially they pitch ideas for movies that they'd like to see, or they fix movies that have come out and haven't been fantastic. And one of them pitched this idea for a Dracula film. The podcast is called Movie Maintenance. I recommend you all listen to it, and specifically listen to the Dracula episode. And if anyone knows what I'm talking about, just do that. In the film, that film is essentially, it's like, for lack of a better term, it's like Shining meets Silence of the Lambs, set on the 18th or 19th century ship, and it's about Dracula, and it's really good. Their idea that they had, and they're good characters, and it can set up Dracula as being an interesting foil, perhaps for the other monsters to have to fight, or maybe Dracula has to come together with the monsters. That if you either do something like that, or do like a really fun, kind of like James Gunn-esque, just tongue-in-cheek monster squad. Like, don't do... I don't need to see Tom Cruise running at... Does Tom Cruise... So, he doesn't become the Mummy, right? That's not what they're setting up, right? He doesn't become the Mummy. I'm guessing
I have not seen it, so I couldn't tell you.
I would hope he's not becoming the Mummy. I hope that doesn't end with Tom Cruise being like, now I'm the Mummy, and I'm gonna be in the Mummy Avengers.
The Mummy Avengers.
I can't. I'm sorry. I can't.
No, but I think that Universal have too much invested and too many of the pieces in place for this Dark Universe, like Johnny Depp and potentially Angelina Jolie and all of these, and Bill Condon's going to be doing Bride of Frankenstein, all this stuff. They've got too much invested.
They're doing. Apparently, they want Michael Fassbender for it's either Hunchback or Phantom. Which, by the way, Disney, why haven't you gotten on Hunchback of Notre Dame? Like, if there is a remake to do, remake Hunchback of Notre Dame. Like that is gold. Like do that and release that in November. You got a Best Picture nomination there. I'm telling you, Disney, it's there. Just do it. Get Fincher and get on that. I'm just Jesus.
That's actually pretty. Like David Fincher does Michael Fassbender in Hunchback of Notre Dame. I think that's pretty cool.
Right.
But where was I going?
I'm sorry, Trilby.
Yeah, it's okay. No, they've already got these pieces in place for them to completely abandon. Like, they're not going to completely abandon it, but I do think restructuring is in order. I think they're going to slash the budgets, and they're going to make it less action horror and maybe more drama horror. Maybe really focus on what makes these characters so compelling. Like I think like a modern day Frankenstein could be and not like Victor Frankenstein, James McAvoy, Daniel Radcliffe. No. I think that there's a reason these characters were compelling in the first place, and they're still enduring icons of fiction, whether it be literature or in their films.
The book is great. I don't know if you guys, I don't know if you read the book Trilby by Mary Shelley, the original novel. Yeah. I had to read it for school, but I'm like, reading for school, lame, and I couldn't put it down. I really enjoyed it. I was like, that's a really genuinely good book.
And it really holds up. I just think that you don't need it to be this like even though it is a cinematic universe and a franchise, franchises don't need to have massive budgets. If you Blumhouse it and you do slash the budgets and make it more cost effective, but you do pack on that
How
talent.
much do you think that diner scene in Split cost? Have you seen Split?
The diner scene? What you mean at the very end?
Yeah. How much do you think that cost? Like what? A couple thousand, maybe?
I think if it was done, if it was done by Universal, we're talking $125 million.
You know what? You're right. Never mind.
Yeah,
I'm just saying
possibly.
they were able to make Split and suddenly into this expansive universe with a matter of like 2 lines and a simple pan down a counter. So it's not that hard. Universal, just okay.
Yeah, I think that the big complaints I'm hearing about The Mummy is that it's just really, really poorly directed, and I think getting Alex Kurtzman, a guy whose only real prior experience in filmmaking is single-handedly ruining Star Trek.
Why do I feel like Tom Cruise has magic blood in the movie? $5 says he's got magic blood in the movie.
Okay,
Trilby.
yeah.
Let's make that bet now.
Okay, even if it's not magic blood, it's a way to prevent people from dying.
I've heard that.
I've heard. Am I right?
I've heard that there's like death prevention in the movie too. I'm like, Jesus.
Alex Kurtzman, what is your immortality fetish? Maybe Tom Cruise on microwaves.
They were both
you?
on set and they're both on set of a movie. Like they happened to be on the same lot, and Tom Cruise like holding a microwave, and Kurtzman turns to him and says, "You want to be immortal?" And Tom Cruise is like, "Aren't I already?"
Do I? But I don't think they're gonna halt the brakes on it, but I think that this weekend, like come Monday, Tuesday morning, there are going to be a lot of talks at Universal in terms of restructuring and just hoping that Johnny Depp accepts half of his salary.
Don't put Johnny Depp in this, please.
Make him invisible from the very beginning.
Yeah, unless it's like The Fly, like maybe like do Invisible Man meets The Fly. I'm down with that, but I can't.
The Invisible Fly.
Well, you know what I mean. Like, the idea of a man who's slowly losing his, making more like a tragedy, but I can't. Johnny Depp and me are not on great terms right now. I'm excited for Murder Orient Express, but apparently he dies first, but whatever. I don't know. Mummy. Mm-hmm. Anyways, I have another question here.
Show me the mummy!
How long have you been sitting on that, Trilby?
I stole it from the Late Late Show of James Corden.
I see.
But have you got another question for us?
Yeah, I got one. Cole Kanagawa, sorry Cole, he asked, who are your personal heroes or inspirations?
Well, Trey, you inspire me every day.
Oh, Trilby. Oh, flattery will get you nowhere in this world.
Damn it. Do you have an answer?
Well, I mean, I suppose my main inspiration, in terms of, like, one of my personal heroes, this is gonna sound cheesy, but it's Batman. That's not like because I want to be Batman or anything, cue the death of my parents, but I just, in the sense that Batman is kind of the reason that I kind of became such a fan of, like, everything like that moves on the screen, if that makes any sense. Because, like, before I even loved movies, I liked watching the Batman TV show, whether that be the 60s or the animated series, and I was just always trying to recreate that in my brain, and then therefore recreate it with my toys and with my cousin, and we would always break something. I told the story of how we broke a lamp using rolled up cushions and pretending they were lightsabers, but, like, you know, and I guess in further respect, Christopher Nolan is a very big hero of mine. I never want to meet the man because I don't want him to not be a good person. So I'm so nervous because he is in many ways the reason I watch movies today. John Lasseter and Brad Bird, those Pixar guys, were kind of defined me as a person in the sense that they kind of helped teach me values through the movies I was always taken to. And perhaps my biggest hero, I think and this is gonna sound really cheesy, but it's probably my dad. And it's gonna sound really cheesy, but it's probably my dad. Just in the sense of like he hasn't like done anything like, you know, he's a cop and saves lives every day, but you know, he took me to the movies, and so I really have to thank him for that in terms of being inspirational. He opened me up to this horizon. He took me to my first Star Wars movie. I was 5, you know. Even though he hated them, he took me to Harry Potter, every single one. And so I'll thank him for that. So there you go. That's my cheesy Oscar answer. My music's being played, so I gotta walk off stage.
Do you hear the people singing the song? Well, for me, apart from, you know, obviously friends and family and all that stuff, there's some influences like people whose work I just massively admire, like, you know, Edgar Wright or Steven Spielberg. And Wonder Woman, because as we've established earlier, I'm just a teenage girl and I have that inspiration in my life. But in terms of people who's just like work ethic, I really appreciate and admire. There's Nick Park, like the creator of Wallace and Gromit, because when like his work is awesome, as I've we talked about earlier with Peter Sallis and all that. But when you like look at his actual like experience and how he got to where he is now. Because he made a student film, and then it impressed the folks at Aardman so much that they gave him the budget to finish it, and then he's basically the John Williams of animated films, where if he's nominated for an Oscar, he's likely competing with himself for the prize. Like that's not a joke. His very first Oscar nominated film, he lost. Because he won against himself. He lost against himself.
What did he? What were they?
The nominees were Creature Comforts and A Grand Day Out, and Creature Comforts won.
Yeah, he did both of those. Yeah.
Yeah, he's been nominated like 6 times and he's won 4 or 5 times. He's got a terrific track record. But he's essentially he started off as a student, and it's why I call A Grand Day Out the most successful student film ever made. And like he's been able to branch off to other things like Chicken Run and to all these other projects. And,
God, I love Chicken Run.
It's so good.
Yeah. I don't want to be a pie. Gosh, God,
I don't like gravy. But and he's he just seems like such a brilliant, down to earth guy, and you see him in interviews, and he just is really sharp and witty. He's just someone who I genuinely would just love to sit down with for like 30, 40 minutes and just pick his brain in an interview. I just love to speak to the guy.
Yeah. And
there's also Russell T Davies. He's if you don't know, he's a screenwriter and TV producer, and he's the guy who essentially brought back Doctor Who in 2005. And he just his the way that he focuses on character and people. He's a well-traveled guy. And he's also like very outspoken about like his own persona. He's an openly gay guy, and that experience really comes across in his work, and it's really admirable and respectful. He's done some great things for the British TV landscape in the past 15, 20 years, whether it be of course Doctor Who, Queer as Folk, Casanova, Cucumber, Tofu and Banana, which is a trilogy of like Channel 4 dramas, and he's just got such a great resume in such a relatively short amount of time. And he just seems he's very approachable. He's a really friendly guy by the sounds of it, and I almost got the chance to meet him last year in Edinburgh, and he's like 2 feet taller than I thought he would be. I never actually got the chance to meet him, which I'm really gutted about, because he was like feet away from me, and I just sort of I just froze. I just didn't go and talk to him when I really wanted to. But it's like just his contribution, like if him bringing Doctor Who back, Doctor Who is what got me into like wanting to make media in this industry. It's sort of like watching Doctor Who Confidential, which, if you don't know, it was like a 45-minute making of the episode you just watched, and just seeing that behind the scenes stuff and seeing everything that went into it is what led me onto this path in a way.
Yeah.
And that wouldn't have happened if he hadn't have decided to revive this really like off-kilter, low-budget, kooky British sci-fi show. And Rusty Davis and Nick Park are the two guys for me.
Yeah. I mean, I also have to give. I mean, modern heroes of mine, people modern that I think have defined what I'm trying to do now. I mean, you've got, your Finchers and your Sorkins in terms of, like, people that I aspire to be. But I think, little did I realize, I gotta thank Bob Iger for a lot. Bob Iger's the president of Disney, and he kind of foresaw the bite of Lucasfilm and Marvel from Disney. And the Marvel Cinematic Universe has inspired me a lot more than I realized, because going back and watching going back and seeing how this universe has kind of grown and the Marvel Cinematic Universe is kind of giving me this opportunity of being able to go online. One of my first reviews that I wrote online Facebook and posted on my Facebook page that I realized got me a lot of hate was my review of The Winter Soldier. That was in like April of 2014. In fact, that was early April, and that was kind of the kind of first instance that I could do this whole YouTube thing. And when I realized, I was like, oh, I'm okay with getting hate from these people that didn't agree with me, and I was willing to have this conversation with these people about a film that I didn't like at the time. I was dumb when I was younger, but it kind of did lead me into this path that I'm now here talking to you, Trilby. So Bob Iger also deserves to get some love from me. Plus, he made a really damn good film with Force Awakens. Good job, Bob. Good job, Bob. But yeah, there's a lot of people in my life that I think if they were never around, I wouldn't be here. Spielberg, I suppose. I was never growing up. I never watched a lot of Spielberg, so I know everyone loves Spielberg's a fantastic filmmaker. He makes some fantastic films, but I was always more of a Nolan guy growing up. Growing up, I was always watching The Prestige and Batman Begins, Dark Knight, as opposed to watching Jurassic Park. I guess that's kind of how I'm the cynic now. So there you go.
But it's a generational thing in a way as well.
Yeah, in many ways, the Dark Knight trilogy is my Star Wars trilogy, in the sense of I'm like, oh, those first two are the best, and then there's Jedi, or Rises, So, do you have another question to ask?
I've got one comment from Alex Cepeda. Alex Cepeda, I think. Also, can I have a birthday shout out for one of your biggest fans? Happy birthday, Alex!
No, you can't. I'm cutting it out.
Well, you got one from me. You got one from me, buddy. Although I think one thing you might like, though.
You know what I might do now? I might just be like, he'll be like, "Hey, Alex Bay, can I get a bleep?" And I'll put a giant sensor over it, and then I'll put in my bed. No, you can't. And then we'll just move on to the next question.
No. Although, actually, I think there's one thing that you may like that will make you want to give him a shout out. I just went because there's his profile picture and everything, and it's him with a cake. And I'm assuming that's his birthday cake, and it is a Batman cake. You've got the Batman silhouette on the top of it, and written on the side is a profile shot of Batman with a load of bats coming out the back of him, and it says, "I am vengeance, I am the night, I am Batman." So that's a badass bat cake.
Man, I wouldn't want to touch that. I would put that in a museum. You know what? Happy birthday! Congrats on popping out and not dying. Good work, Alex.
Nice. Yeah, happy birthday, Alex, and I hope you enjoy that art piece of a cake. That's awesome.
I say that all the time to my friends, and there always one friend that gets offended by that today, but I'm like, whatever. Anyways, that's the Christopher Nolan ending.
Now is not the time for cynicism. That comes later.
That comes later, yes. Okay, so Alice Flag on Facebook asks, what are your opinions on adaptations? Personally, I hate them. It seems the only good adaptations are the ones that at least have to do with the source material. Now, that's not entirely false. There are some of the best films out there, and a lot of people, The Shining, Jaws, Jurassic Park, all vary and stray very far from the source material, but at the same time, a film like Casino Royale sticks very close to the source material, and it is a fantastic film. I recently watched that film. That is it. You ever watch a movie to quick diverge from Alice's question? Do you ever watch a movie and you see a shot in the movie and you just think, God, how difficult must that have been to do? There's a shot in Casino Royale where the guy like gets the butterfly knife and like gets it out and then cuts the bottom of the chair out. And and it's all done in one shot. And my question is, how many chairs did they have to go? I'm like that. The thought of doing that just exhausts me, Trilby. It terrifies me. I couldn't do it.
Well, there's a shot in La La Land that I saw some behind the scenes footage for. It's in the someone in the crowd sequence when it's her friends who are outside of the house and they're about to go on a night out, and then Emma Stone comes out in a blue dress, and then what happens is that. Yeah. Then what happens is that the camera looks up to a palm tree nearby and then comes down, and then it shows those four dancing towards the camera. And there's a footage of how they accomplished that shot, and I wasn't sure if they just did two shots and just blended them together. But what happens is that the camera guy, as Emma Stone steps out of the house, the cameraman follows her out, and without looking, because he's got to trust the rest of his crew, steps backwards onto a crane. The crane lifts him up, and he has to go up on the crane and then back down, and then follow them on this crane as this vehicle goes backwards.
Oh god!
And there's just so much behind the scenes footage of like Damien Chazelle directing in La La Land. But there's a scene where Ryan Gosling's on the piano and Emma Stone's dancing on the other side of the room, and the camera swings back and forth between the two, and you can see Damien Chazelle tapping the DOP on the shoulder for when to change the shot.
I've seen that. Yeah, I've seen it going like back and forth, like something's trailer, The Shining with the Jack and the axe, and just going back and forth. I'm like, no, let's just blend the shots, please. I can't. But hey, it looks great, so there it is.
Yeah.
But
it looks awesome.
Same thing, like, but you watch something like The Revenant, and you're like, poor Leo, like that entire film production just sounds like an absolute nightmare. If I ever direct like that, I apologize. But like, I just like, because good lord, like what that man did to those poor people. Like you watch some of those shots, and you're like, the movie looks fantastic, but this could have been done so much simpler.
But there were some shots where it's just incredibly long and over the top, just for the sake of doing it long and over the top. But then you get scenes like the church sequence in Kingsman, where the shots it is different multiple shots, but it's done to look like one take. But that is so in service of the sequence. It's like that just one continuous shot of just seeing how effective the Kingsman can be. And just the logistics of that, because I've worked on like film sets where we have just done relatively simple sequences with a lot of extras, and that's already pretty hard.
Yes.
Having to do that amount of extras with action, fight choreography, stunts, smashing chairs, blood, pyrotechnics, I'm going cross-eyed just at
Chili, I'll tell you
thought
what,
of it.
There's a scene in Equation where two characters walk and talk down a hallway and end up and they go from the exterior of a classroom to outside in front of a school, like in front of the steps of a school, and it is about a 2.5 minute, 3 minute sequence. You know, it's them walking and talking down a hallway. It's very simple. It took 3.5 hours to shoot in total. The take that we ended up using was the very last take. We shot like 16 takes of it, and it so this is my way of telling you that you are in no way wrong. It is absolutely just baffling to me, some of the things that people do on filmmaking, but I can't wait. I'm so excited.
What was the question?
Oh yeah,
what was
Alice
the question?
Flag. What are your opinions? Sorry,
I forgot what we were on
Alice
about.
Flag. What are your opinion on adaptations? Because she feels that some of them.
Yes,
yeah.
Speaking of Kingsman, and I think that Matthew Vaughn adaptations, which they take the name and the premise of the source material, I think they actually improve on them because
doesn't he have something to do with the adaptation sometimes, or is that I might be thinking of Edgar Wright and Scott Pilgrim? But I feel like didn't he help write some of the stuff that ends up in the Secret Service? I might be thinking of Scott Pilgrim and Edgar Wright, but
I don't know off the top of my head, but I think the Matthew Vaughn influence, because he takes these really cynical and really sort of dour stories, and he actually injects more humanity and levity into it, and I think in doing so actually improves the source material. Like I enjoy the Kick-Ass comic, but it kind of has an open disdain for its audience, whereas I think Kick-Ass is a lot more embracing of the comic book superhero geekdom that like makes the genre successful. It still has its moments of cynicism, but I think Kick-Ass and Kingsman are superior to the source material because Matthew Vaughn is a much more...
If you go on Matthew Vaughn's IMDb page, the first thing that pops up is the theatrical trailer for Fan4 Stick.
How random.
Well, because I'm on Matthew Vaughn's IMDb page.
I'm just thinking, like, why? I just think that's weird that it's the very first thing, and that's something that is worth being credited for.
I guess he was a producer on it, but come on, man, come on, guys, you know you didn't need to do that. All right, anyways,
maybe.
Sorry,
but yeah, for adaptations that like it's tough to say because you could point to like 100 examples of terrible adaptations, but you could also point to 100 examples of great adaptations, and it's not necessarily because they stuck perfectly to the source material or deviated greatly from it, like Jaws or Jurassic Park and all that stuff. It still comes down to basic filmmaking fundamentals as to whether or not it works. Because let's say Green Lantern 2011 or 2010, whatever, is not a bad film because it's an adaptation of Green Lantern. It's a bad film because the filmmakers didn't know what they were doing. if that makes sense. It's having this source material behind you is just, it's not much more different than having than starting completely from scratch. It's still all about the fundamentals.
Jesus.
What have I done?
No,
have
sorry.
I said it wrong? Have I said it wrong?
I'm looking at the box office for Mummy, and it looks like it did 52 million in China, and I'm just thinking, Jesus. Good Lord.
Yeah, the Hunchback of China.
Yeah, you're right. Oh my God. Sorry, I was paying attention. I was just looking at something else. That makes sense. No, I think you're right. Adaptations. It's not about how resourceful, how close you are, because the movie Captain America: Civil War is a fantastic film, but it takes the themes of Civil War and the ideas of superhero needing to be responsible and the 9/11 imagery that is presented in the comic book, and kind of reflects that into the overarching story that Kevin Feige and company have built in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. And like I said, a film like Casino Royale, even a film like Psycho, those are two things that stay relatively close to the original source material and are both fantastic films. So it depends on A, the talent of your director, and B, whether or not they're this kind of story they're attempting to tell, what kind of movie they're trying to make. Yeah.
I think one reason Marvel have been doing so well is because they've had these characters that have been around for decades upon decades, and they've had like thousands of comic book issues and stories devoted to them. So what Marvel are able to do is that they're able to look at that legacy and think, okay, what didn't work, what did work, what did the fans respond to, and then use that knowledge, that decades worth of experimentation to inform their creative decisions.
Yeah.
And that's one advantage of adaptations, because what you could do is that you could look at let's say, hypothetically speaking, you could look at Twilight, and then if you're told, okay, let's adapt Twilight, what sucked about Twilight? What can we do to make it better? Like, I think more filmmakers need to do that, because if you've read The Godfather, the book, it's a phenomenally mediocre book.
Yeah.
It's pure average, but if you give it to Francis Ford Coppola, he makes it into one of the greatest films of all time by fundamentally changing the material.
Well, that's the thing that like Peter Jackson did with Lord of the Rings. You know, like I said, I've never finished the first Elvish Bible that is Fellowship of the Ring, but I've gotten through all the films. That sounds even worse. But I did watch all three of the films, and say what you will about the Hobbit films, the Hobbit book is fantastic in my personal opinion. I think it's a really great children's story. I think it's like 100 pages. I think it's a nice read. And I think that there are certain parts of the films that reflect how good the source material is. But I think at the same time, you know, there are films that sometimes they're just trying to be faithful for the sake of being faithful. And while it does work with some studios, like you said, like Marvel and Disney has kind of been revamping Star Wars based on the idea of adaptations in the first place. Like, say what's real about Rogue One being an original story, if you will. The concept of there being like almost like a heist war film in Star Wars is an original idea, but that film is chocked to the brim with imagery upon imagery, and the entire third act, essentially, it's just Return of the Jedi. You know, to the point of, you know, all the space battles and whatnot. It's all things we've seen before. Force Awakens is essentially A New Hope redone, or essentially it's just the greatest hits moments of all the stuff in the original trilogy. But on the flip side of that, DC they attempted to, you know, Zack Snyder attempted to take Superman Birthright and combine it with like Batman, and tried to do Man of Steel, and for a lot of people that did not work. Batman v Superman is Dark Knight Returns, Death of Superman, Justice League War. It's like a bunch of different comic book lines attempted to be smushed together, and it simply put did not work. And I think that you just have to be careful, and you have to trust, maybe not necessarily the source material in itself, but I think I said before, it's all about who your filmmaker is. Yeah.
Going back to Disney, you've got a film like Beauty and the Beast, which is so beholden to its legacy that it's not able to have its own unique stamp or like really separate itself from its predecessor. Whereas I think something like The Jungle Book or the Cinderella remake, they build on top of those foundations of very iconic stories, and very iconic imagery and songs, but the story itself is not quite ironclad and hasn't aged very well. But then when you get Jon Favreau or Kenneth Branagh to adapt the material, they add to it. They make The Jungle Book like more a story about growing up and what it means to be a man. They make Cinderella more a story about optimism and the importance of kindness and hope. Whereas the original animated films were, if you watch Cinderella, like the original animated film, it's more a film about the mice than it is about anything else. That's easy to forget because you remember the pumpkin carriage and the fairy godmother and bibbidi bobbidi boop and all that stuff. Whereas I think when you give it to the hands of Kenneth Branagh,
bibbidi boop and all that, all that bibbidi bobbidi boop nonsense.
Bibbidi bobbidi boop and all that jazz. You put it in the hand,
bibbidi bobbidi boop.
but you put it in the hands of Kenneth Branagh, a legitimately great filmmaker, and he elevates the material.
Absolutely.
And I think he wouldn't be able to do that if it wasn't adapted from something previously. So adaptations are a double-edged sword in a way, but I can understand the idea of adaptation fatigue.
All right. And to answer a question from Lord Morbius, yes, me and Tillbee have murdered Bandit and buried him in Tillbee's cupboard. All right, guys, that'll end this week's episode. Sorry, Tillbee, you had some wine. I realized you. I didn't realize you didn't realize.
See, I was in on the murder, but not the disposal.
Well, if it was going to put him in my house, Jesus, Tillbee. Anyways, with that being said, we will close.
I've got a lot of explaining to do to the fiance.
Tillbee, what's this in the water? Nothing.
Why does it taste so Australian? And why is my fiance Cockney?
I don't know how she sounds, Tillbee. You could have married Christian Bale. I don't know. All right. And with that, we'll close out here. Thank you guys all for watching or listening, whatever. Like and subscribe. Join us next time when we talk whatever it is we're talking about. Thank you guys for keeping with us in these times of attempting to return to form here. Tillbee, where can people find you?
You can find me on my website, www.tillbee.com. It's my 25th birthday in like 3 days' time, and I'm planning an article. I am planning a special article for it was going to be a video, but I just haven't had the time to do the video, so it will be an article on the website. So look out for that on June 15th. You can also follow me on Twitter at Tillbee Reviews, or you can follow me on Facebook at Mr. Tardis
Hashtag drunk Tillbee tweets. I'm excited where he gets the average.
It's just me like blowing a horn like
Brexit was an inside job. Hashtag,
it's a conspiracy in terms of democracy.
Hashtag May was right. Alright, so yeah. Anyways.
Hashtag June is the end of May.
Oh, that is some poetry there. It's like poetry, Tillbee of rhymes. Alright, the people can find me on right here on this YouTube channel, Podcast Media, Twitter and Instagram at Podcast Media. If you guys ever have any comments you'd like to tell me, just tweet me and I'll talk to you probably. Even if I sound condescending, it's because I am. Equation is in it's coming. There it is. That's all I'm gonna say. Hashtag doors. Yeah, thank you for whoever did the design that's going to be on there this time. And with that being said, catch you all later, our Movie Maniacs.